Chapter 1350. 1350 Who's the master of the world? 100 Beasts Tribe, Meeting Hall. The emperors of the heaven-suppressing divine army, and the original emperors of northern plains were seated. Lu Ming and Xiao Wan were sitting at the very top. In the hall, it was silent. Everyone looked at each other, but no one made a sound. What should we do next? Xia Zhuyang was the first to speak, breaking the silence. What should he do? All sorts of thoughts flashed through everyone's mind. Now, the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was destroyed, and the Xie clan suffered heavy losses. They had sealed them slaviers as imperial palaces for 10,000 years. In the vast divine wilderness mainland, other than the western desert, it no longer had an owner. So, what should they do next? In other words, how should they be distributed? In this boundless territory, there were endless resources. Everyone wanted them. At a smaller scale, there were still some former overlord forces present, such as Tianxia Academy and the Floating Mountain. How should these forces distribute their territories? On a larger scale, it would be the heaven-suppressing divine army and the forces of northern plains. How would they get along and how would they be distributed? In fact, in northern plains there were two forces, Lu Ming and Xiao Wan, but they were only in an alliance. Everyone fell silent again, especially the heaven-suppressing divine army. This was an important problem. If it was not wrestle-levered properly, it might lead to another huge battle. However, the heaven-suppressing divine army was no match for Lu Ming and the others. If they were to fight, they would only be destroyed. Therefore, the powerhouses of the heaven-suppressing divine army had the most complicated feelings, and they found it difficult to speak. Two tigers can't share a mountain. Would Lu Ming and Xiao Wan be targeted next? In their hearts, they were not confident. How about we form an alliance? After a long time, Xiao Wan spoke. Alliance? Many people's hearts trembled as they pondered. Let's form an alliance. All the factions will form one faction. Then the entire divine wilderness will be under our control. Why would we need to worry about territory and territory? Xiao Wan smiled. I agree. I also agree. In the beginning it was Chu Luo, Mo Yi and the others. Later on, Xia Zhuyang, the barbarian emperor, the Moon Heart Martial Emperor, and the others all spoke one after another, expressing their approval. Haha, Chaotic Sky Emperor's suggestion is good. This old man also agrees. The old general of the heaven-suppressing divine army laughed and expressed his thoughts. In the end, all eyes were on Lu Ming. Lu Ming had yet to speak. I also have no objections. Lu Ming smiled faintly. All right, then it's decided. Xiao Wan smiled. Since we're in an alliance, we need an alliance leader. Who's the alliance leader? Suddenly, an emperor spoke, and the scene fell silent again. Who would be the alliance leader? Forming an alliance and forming a faction, there was no doubt that the alliance leader was the leader of this faction. He was also the master of the divine wilderness, ruling the world. The crowd could not help but look at the old general, Xiao Wan and Lu Ming. At the scene, only these three people were the most qualified. The alliance leader's person, of course, it's Lu Ming. Lu Ming is young, and his combat strength is unparalleled. There has never been anyone like him in the divine wilderness since ancient times. Who else can it be other than him? Xia Zhuyang was the first to speak, recommending Lu Ming. That's right. If not for Lu Ming, we wouldn't be in this situation. It's Lu Ming who turned the tide and created this situation. I also recommend Lu Ming to be the alliance leader. One of the deans of the Tianxia Academy continued. I recommend Lu Ming too. Me too. Then, another dean of the Tianxia Academy, the barbarian emperor and martial emperor Yuexin, recommended Lu Ming one after another. Behind Lu Ming, the heaven-suppressing divine ape and Tu Qian were exuding auras that were even more obvious. Everyone's heart trembled. Unknowingly, the forces and abilities that Lu Ming controlled had already become so shocking. Lu Ming picked up a glass of wine and sipped slowly. He did not say a word, and no one knew what he was thinking. The emperors of the heaven-suppressing divine army, Mo Yi, Chu Luo, and the others were all calculating something in their minds. Haha, that's right. I'm also interested in recommending Lu Ming as the alliance leader. Xiao Wan laughed heartily as he expressed his thoughts. As soon as Xiao Wan spoke, Mo Yi, Chu Luo, and the others also spoke up in support of Lu Ming. In the end, only the heaven-suppressing divine army was left. The emperor of the heaven-suppressing divine army sighed in his heart. He knew that they were weak and could not compete with Lu Ming. Now that Xiao Wan was supporting Lu Ming, how could they say no? Old General, what do you think? Xiao Wan looked at the old general with a faint smile. Brother Lu Ming, your talent is unprecedented, and you have made the greatest contribution this time. It is the divine wilderness continent's fortune for Lu Ming to be the alliance leader. I have no objections, the old general said. As the old general spoke, the warring martial emperor and the others also recommended Lu Ming. All right, then it's decided. This subordinate pays his respects to the alliance master. Xiao Wan suddenly got up from his seat and walked down to bow to Lu Ming. This subordinate pays his respects to the alliance master. Xia Zhuyang, the barbarian emperor, and the others followed closely behind Xiao Wan and bowed to Lu Ming. Following that, Xu Luo and the rest also bowed to Lu Ming one by one. Finally, it was the heaven-suppressing divine army and others. All right, since the army holds it in such high regard, Lu Ming will take up the responsibility. Lu Ming stood up and accepted the position of alliance leader. He didn't decline, and there was no need to decline. He needed this identity to better protect his family and friends. Alliance Master, since we want to form an alliance, what should we call it? Someone suggested. Alliance Master has awakened the bloodline of the 9 dragons and is famous throughout the world. In my opinion, why don't we call it the Dragon Alliance? Xia Zhuyang said after a moment of silence. Dragon Alliance? I think it's possible. It's concise and domineering. Xiao Wan said. All right, we'll call it the Dragon Alliance. Finally, Lu Ming decided. Now that the name had been chosen, the problem was, where would the headquarters of the Dragon Alliance be? It can't be set in the Holy City, right? Eastern Barren, Northern Plains, and Southern Nether were not good. The Dragon Alliance was bound to sweep across the world and unify the divine wilderness. Their headquarters should be in the central continent. Only then would they be able to look down on the world and shock the world. In the end, they decided that since the Dragon Alliance was going to be built, it would be best to build a new headquarters too. After some discussion, they decided to select disciples on the vast land of the central continent. In the end, they decided to build the headquarters of the Dragon Alliance on Mount Longyu, about 300 million li away, east of the Holy City. It was called the Imperial Dragon City. After the alliance leader and name were decided by the headquarters, they began to select the important leaders. Finally, Xiao Wan and the old general of the heaven-suppressing divine army were the deputy chiefs of the Dragon Alliance. The other emperors would protect the Dragon Alliance. Each protector could manage a territory. After the leader was set, they were assigned their respective tasks. There were 2 main tasks at hand. The first was to dispatch manpower to build the Imperial Dragon City. The second was to send an army to truly unify the divine wilderness continent. The Xie family had sealed Themslaviers, and the Emperor Sky Divine Palace had been destroyed. The overlord forces that truly had an emperor were almost all from the Dragon Alliance. However, there were still countless other forces, big and small, below the overlord forces. All of these powers had to be in the hands of the Dragon Alliance. The entire divine wilderness continent had to be in their hands. Chapter 1351. 1351 Sweeping the World and returning to the East Continent. The next day, when the news spread, all the forces in the Dragon Alliance cheered. The war was over, and the Dragon Alliance dominated the world. The huge Dragon Alliance started to move. The original major forces had sent people to the Dragon Leap Mountain to build the Imperial Dragon City. A portion of them sent an army to conquer the world. A few days later, the news of the battle at the Holy City spread throughout the world. A magnitude 10 earthquake occurred in the divine wilderness. Countless cultivators and factions were stirred up. A few days later, The news of the Dragon Alliance's establishment and Lu Ming's appointment as the alliance leader spread throughout the Divine Wilderness continent again, through the voice transmission Jade Talisman. Countless forces, big and small, surrendered and expressed their willingness to join the Dragon Alliance. Right now, the Xie clan had sealed themselves off as the Imperial Palace for 10,000 years. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had been destroyed, and the Dragon Alliance was truly unrivaled in the world. No power dared to resist. After that, the Dragon Alliance's army split into three. The old general led a large army and swept through the central continent. Xiao Wan led a large army to attack the southern underworld. As for Lu Ming, he would lead the army to the eastern barren territory. There was almost no doubt about this. All the forces in central continent surrendered. When Xiao Wan attacked the southern underworld, he only received a little resistance. Those who resisted were easily killed by Xiao Wan, and the rest surrendered. Half a month after the battle at the Holy City, Lu Ming led his men and set foot on the Yin and Yang mountain again. Mount Liangyi has finally been taken back. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others stood high in the sky, looking at the vast land of Mount Liangyi in the distance. They were filled with emotions. When they were captured by De, they thought that they would never be able to take back Mount Liangyi. They did not expect that they would return to Mount Liangyi so quickly in just a few months. Zongzi no Alliance Master, Bai Shijin, and the rest looked at Lu Ming with complicated expressions. They did not know how to address him. Senior, since I'm Master Lien Song's disciple, I'm also the Zongzi of the Talisman sect. You can call me Zongzi in private. Lu Ming said. Yes, Zongzi, Bai Shijin Du Songjue, and the others were overjoyed. Lu Ming was now the leader of the Dragon Alliance and ruled the world. They were afraid that Lu Ming would look down on the Talisman Amulet sect and did not know what to do with it. However, it seemed that Lu Ming had not forgotten his roots. There were many experts in the Dragon League. As for the Talisman Amulet sect, they still didn't have an emperor. They were afraid that the Talisman Amulet sect wouldn't be able to compete with the other experts in the Dragon Alliance. The other forces wouldn't be allocated enough resources and would eventually decline. However, they did not have to worry now. Lu Ming, the alliance leader, was the Zongzi of the Talisman Amulet sect. The Talisman Amulet sect had an extraordinary status in the Dragon Alliance. They did not have to worry about not being able to obtain resources without an emperor. Senior White, Senior Du, from now on, you two will lead the disciples of the Talisman Amulet sect to guard the Yin and Yang mountain. Lu Ming said. Yes, Zongzi. Bai Shijin and Du Songjue accepted the order. Let's go to Nine Dragons. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the army set off for Nine Dragons. As for the divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, it would fly back to Nine Dragons after the Battle of the Holy City and suppress the Nine Dragon veins again. To Lu Ming's surprise, they did not encounter any resistance when they arrived at Nine Dragons. The forces in Nine Dragons had already opened their gates. When Lu Ming's army arrived, they all knelt down and surrendered to Lu Ming. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance. We are willing to return to the Dragon Alliance and serve the Alliance Master. There were 5 to 6 supreme martial artists standing at the very front, bowing and saluting in fear. Hee, we're all old acquaintances. Lu Ming stood high in the sky and looked down at the 6 supreme martial artists. Out of the 6 supreme beings, 3 of them were Lu Ming's old acquaintances. They were the 3 remaining family heads of the 6 great ancient families: the Dongfang family, the Kong family, and the Nangong family. The 3 clan heads broke out in cold sweat when Lu Ming's gaze swept over them. Alliance Master, we were blind in the past and offended you. From now on, we'll be at your beck and call and do our best. The head of the Dongfang family said, his face covered in cold sweat. The pressure that Lu Ming was exuding made it difficult for him to breathe. They knew that as long as Lu Ming gave the order, not only them, but even their families would be exterminated. In the crowd behind him, many of the paragons who had dealt with Lu Ming before, and even competed with him, knelt on the ground. They had mixed feelings. For example, Dongfang Yu and the others. A few years ago, Lu Ming was still competing with them. However, a few years later, Lu Ming was already standing at the peak of the divine wilderness continent, ruling the world. There was really no way to compare. Hee, Lu Ming chuckled. The master of the Dongfang family, and the rest trembled in fear. They did not understand what Lu Ming was thinking. Would he kill them? This kind of waiting was extremely torturous. After a long while, Lu Ming said indifferently, "All right, I will allow you to surrender. However, all of you will have to move out of 9 dragons to the northern plains. Do you have any objections?" "No, I have no objections. Thank you, Alliance Master, for showing mercy. This subordinate is extremely grateful." The head of the Dongfang family, and the others let out a long breath, and thanked him repeatedly. For them, although 9 dragons was their foundation, and they had been developing here for nearly 10,000 years, it was a pity to move away. However, it was much better than the disaster of being killed, and their families exterminated. Naturally, they did not dare to say anything. Not long after, the powerful forces in 9 dragons started to use the interterritory teleportation formation to head to northern plains. In northern plains, there would naturally be someone to arrange for them. As for the small forces in 9 dragons, they were not necessary. They could not cause any trouble even if they stayed. After that, Lu Ming left Xiaozhuyang behind. Yan Kuangtu and the others took care of 9 dragons, the original Heavenly Corpse sect, and the Myriad Demon Valley. Lu Ming went to the east alone. Not long after, Lu Ming entered the Tianxian region. However, he did not go to the Tianxian sub-palace immediately. The first place he went to was the 100 Deities Slope. News of the Battle of the Holy City had already spread throughout the entire divine wilderness continent, including the Tianxian region. Out of all the sub-palaces of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, some of them were in chaos. Without any control, there were all sorts of incidents where people fought for the treasures of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Some of the sub-palaces were restrained and were waiting for news. They knew that once the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace was destroyed, there would definitely be a powerful force that would take over the territory of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace. There would definitely be someone who would take over their territory. Tianxian Sub-Palace was not in chaos. In the middle of Tianxian City, in a courtyard, a few people were drinking tea and discussing something. The leader was Mu Tian, the palace master of Tianxian Sub-Palace. On the side, Mu Yi and Mu Zheng were there. I didn't expect that the vast Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace, which has been passed down for 10,000 years, would collapse so easily. Mu Yi drank a cup of wine and sighed. A few days ago, they had received the news and were extremely shocked. It was simply unbelievable. The Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was such a huge existence, yet it had fallen. The path of martial arts is fraught with danger. Even a cultivation emperor can still fall if he's not careful. Mu Zheng also sighed. It's said that more than 20 emperors died in this battle. Mu Tian said, his voice slightly interfering. The 3 brothers had an expression of disbelief on their faces. Chapter 1352. 1352 Chapter 1352 Re-entering 100 Deities Slope. In their eyes, an emperor was like a god. He ruled the world and was invincible. With a wave of his hand, the sky would collapse and the earth would crack. With a thought, he could kill hundreds of millions of people. They had never seen such a figure in their entire lives. However, more than 20 of such figures had died in a single battle. They simply couldn't imagine it. Lu Ming is the one who is leading all of this. Mu Tian suddenly let out another sigh. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng fell silent. Big brother, the Lu Ming you mentioned, is he the Lu Ming that walked out of our place? Mu Yi muttered to himself for a moment before asking. His eyes were filled with disbelief. It was said that the one who dominated that battle was a young genius named Lu Ming. He had killed more than 10 sovereigns and was terrifyingly powerful. That young man was called Lu Ming. Furthermore, after the war, almost all the emperors and powerful factions in the divine wilderness continent formed an alliance called the Dragon Alliance. The leader of the Dragon Alliance was also Lu Ming. I'm not sure. We're at the border, and the information I received is not very detailed. I only know that Lu Ming was born in the East Continent. Mu Tian said, his eyes filled with anticipation. From the East Continent? Could it be the same person? Mu Yi and Mu Zheng let out a long breath. Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, a violent rumble was heard outside Tianxian City. What's going on? Mu Tian stood up abruptly, and his voice could be heard from afar. Buzz! A figure appeared and quickly reported. Palace Master, things are bad. The Palace Master of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace branch in the Black Knife region has led people to attack. What? The Black Knife region? Mu Tian's expression changed. Damn it! The Black Knife region is taking advantage of a burning house. Mu Zheng shouted angrily. When the news of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace being exterminated spread, all the branch palaces were in complete chaos. Some of the branch palaces directly seized the treasures belonging to the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, and even seized the treasures of the other branch palaces. For example, the palace masters of the Black Knife region's sub-palaces were like this, leading people to plunder everywhere. In any case, the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace had already been destroyed, and no one cared about it. These people wanted to plunder a batch of treasures before escaping far away and hiding to cultivate. Buzz! Buzz! Whoosh! One figure after another rushed into Tianxian City, and powerful auras filled the air. Men, welcome the enemy! Mu Tian shouted and soared into the sky. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng followed closely behind. At the same time, figures flew out from various parts of Tianxian City and gathered with Mu Tian and the others. As soon as they gathered, a group of people flew over. They were all wearing black robes and carrying black sabers on their backs. The person in the lead had a fierce-looking face, a beard and a burly body. Dao Heng, what do you want to do? Mu Tian shouted angrily. Haha, what do you want? It's very simple. Hand over all the spiritual herbs, materials and treasures of the profound sky sub-palace, and I'll spare your lives. The big man, also known as Dao Heng, laughed. Don't even think about it. Dao Heng, how dare you? Although the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace has been destroyed, the Dragon Alliance has been established and is ruling the world. They will definitely come to take over the original power of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. If you do this, you will be hunted down by the Dragon Alliance. Mu Tian shouted. Haha, what a joke. The Dragon Alliance is such a huge organization. How could they notice our desolate land so quickly? Even if they did, we're just a small fight in their eyes. They won't pursue the matter. Cut the crap and hand over the treasure. Dao Heng said maliciously. Don't even think about it. Mu Tian's attitude was unyielding. You're looking for death, kill. Kill. Dao Heng shouted, and took the lead in charging towards Mu Tian. The people he brought with him also charged towards Mu Yi and the rest. The aura of the third level of the spiritual ocean realm bloomed from Mu Tian's body. After all these years of cultivation, Mu Tian's cultivation had improved a little, reaching the third level of the spiritual ocean realm. Mu Yi and Mu Zheng had also broken through their limits and entered the Spirit Sea realm. They were at the first level of the Spirit Sea realm. In addition, Tianxian Sub-Palace still had 2 martial artists at the first level of the spiritual ocean realm. However, the Black Knife region had even more experts, with a total of 8 martial artists at the spiritual ocean realm. Dao Heng's cultivation was also at the third level of the spiritual ocean realm. For a time, the Tianxian region was at a disadvantage. Kill! Kill! The battle between the two sides was very intense. People were constantly killed, and their corpses fell to the ground in Tianxian City. However, although the Black Knife region had the advantage, this was Tianxian City after all. The Tianxian region had the home ground advantage, and could still fight with the Black Knife region by using various formations. Buzz! 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 Mu Tian and Dao Heng kept clashing with each other. After dozens of moves, neither of them had a clear winner. Mu Tian, I didn't expect that you actually broke through to the third level of the spiritual ocean realm, without a sound. Dao Heng's anxious voice was heard. In the past, the Black Knife region's strength was stronger than the Tianxian regions, especially Dao Heng, who had a cultivation at the third level of the spiritual ocean realm. He was considered strong even among the palace masters of the nearby large regions. He didn't expect that Mu Tian's cultivation had also reached the third level of the spiritual ocean tier without a sound, and could contend with him. The battle situation had suddenly turned into a state of anxiety. Lu Ming, on the other hand, went to the 100 Deities slope. The 100 Deities slope was filled with gray mist, just like it was in the past. With a sweep of his spiritual senses, Lu Ming discovered that there were still people guarding outside the 100 Deities slope. However, they were only at the king's level, and were miles away from Lu Ming. Lu Ming's figure moved, and he rushed into the 100 Deities slope. The guards did not notice him at all. As soon as he flew into the gray fog-filled area, Lu Ming felt a force acting on his body, preventing him from flying. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation level was much stronger than it had been in the past. By circulating his essential core, Lu Ming was able to offset this force and continued to fly in. The deeper he went, the stronger the power became. It was suppressing Lu Ming and trying to suppress his cultivation completely. Back then, when Lu Ming came in, his cultivation level was completely suppressed, and he became an ordinary person. What powerful strength! Lu Ming could sense that the suppressive force from the outside world was not to be underestimated. It was very shocking. Even with Lu Ming's cultivation level, he had a feeling that he was about to be suppressed. Furthermore, the deeper he went, the stronger the feeling of suppression became. The intent realm floating here is also not simple. Lu Ming scanned his surroundings with his spiritual senses. Initially, when he entered, he was lucky and encountered many different types of intent. He used them to comprehend and increase the level of his intent. Those were all left behind by experts after they died. However, from Lu Ming's point of view, he saw something different. The artistic conception that floated between heaven and earth was indeed left behind by an expert after his death. However, Lu Ming could feel a terrifying pressure from it. Legend had it that the 100 Deities slope was formed when the sky split open countless years ago, and corpses fell down. Lu Ming estimated that those corpses were definitely above the level of an emperor. They were most likely the corpses of saints. Therefore, even though so many years had passed, he had to suppress his cultivation base when he entered with his current realm. Chaos. Lu Ming had a thought, and the chaos concept surrounded his body. As soon as the chaos concept was released, Lu Ming felt his body lighten. The pressure disappeared without a trace. The chaos intent is so mysterious. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Chapter 1353. 1353 The Air-Frozen Bead. Since the chaos concept could block the pressure from the outside, Lu Ming had nothing to worry about. His figure flashed, and he turned into a rainbow light, traversing the 100 Deities slope. The reason why he came to the 100 Deities slope was because he had obtained the lightning cauldron here. In addition, he had also seen a round bead here. There might be good stuff in the 100 Deities slope. That was why Lu Ming came to explore. However, after a round, Lu Ming was disappointed. Other than the floating concept, Lu Ming did not find anything, let alone any treasures. Lu Ming was a little disappointed. After all, the 100 Deities slope had been around for too many years. Furthermore, some treasures, such as holy weapons, were sentient and would fly away by themselves. There might have been some treasures in the 100 Deities slope in the distant past, but it had been too long. Some of them might have lost their spirituality and turned into yellow soil, while others might have flown away by themselves. Previously, Lu Ming was really lucky to have obtained the Thunder Cauldron. All of a sudden, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He saw a strong wind blowing in front of him. In the strong wind, there was a round bead floating up and down. Outside the round bead, there was a small green bird flying. It's that bead! Lu Ming was overjoyed. He did not expect to encounter the round bead again. Buzz! Lu Ming's figure moved, and he pounced toward the round bead. The bird on the bead seemed to be frightened. With a cry, it flew into the bead, and the bead flew away with a green light. Where are you going? Lu Ming cast the wind element technique and moved like lightning, closing the distance between him and the bead in an instant. The bead was shocked again. It shook, and with a whoosh, its speed increased greatly, pulling away from Lu Ming. How can it be so fast? Lu Ming was shocked, then overjoyed. This bead was not ordinary. Even if it was not as amazing as the lightning cauldron, it was at least better than an emperor's spiritual weapon. Since Lu Ming had seen it, how could he return empty-handed? Lu Ming increased his speed and chased after the round bead at top speed. Like two bolts of lightning, one chased and the other escaped. In a short while, they had circled the 100 deities' slope several times. Buzz! At this moment, Lu Ming waved his hand and stretched out his hand. A huge claw that was 10 miles wide and wrapped in chaos intent took shape and grabbed at the pearl. The large hand immediately enveloped the bead. The bead buzzed and charged in one direction. However, when the bead came into contact with the chaos will, it suddenly stopped. It did not continue to escape. Instead, it approached the chaos will and trembled slightly. Lu Ming felt that the round bead was clearly enjoying it. Lu Ming sucked and grabbed the bead with his claws. Then he wrapped the bead with the chaos concept. As expected, the chaos concept resonated with the bead, and a message appeared in Lu Ming's mind. Air Frozen Bead. The bead was called Air Frozen Bead, a wind attribute treasure. Buzz! The air frozen bead shook and flew into Lu Ming's glabella. It stopped not far from the thunder cauldron in his sea of consciousness. With a single thought, a green energy surged into Lu Ming's body from the air frozen bead. Lu Ming cast the wind element art and disappeared from his original spot with a single step, reappearing thousands of miles away. What a fast speed! The wind power in this bead can greatly increase my speed when I use the wind elemental technique. Lu Ming was overjoyed. An increase in speed meant that his ability to survive would be stronger. The air frozen bead is more powerful than an emperor's spiritual weapon. There must be other mysteries to it. I'll study it slowly in the future. I'll go to Tianxian City first. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He then left the 100 deities slope and headed towards Tianxian City. The Tianxian City's grand array was extremely intense, and there were constant casualties. Even Mu Tian, Mu Yi, and Mu Zheng were injured. The Tianxian City had suffered a great loss. However, the Black Knife region's losses were not small either. Damn it! Dao Heng roared in his heart. He didn't expect that Tianxian City would be so difficult to deal with. What a piece of trash. You can't even take down Tianxian City after such a long time. At this moment, a cold shout came from the sky. Boom! Then, a powerful aura descended from the sky, causing Mu Tian and the others to turn pale. 7th level of the spiritual ocean realm. Mu Tian exclaimed and looked up. In the air, a figure wrapped in a black robe appeared. The shocking aura was coming from his body. My lord, you've come. Seeing this person, Dao Heng was overjoyed. The hearts of Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others sank. Dao Heng addressed the other party as Sir. It was obvious that the other party was in Dao Heng's group. Who was it that even Dao Heng addressed him as Sir? Could it be that a higher-up of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace was taking the opportunity to plunder treasures? All sorts of thoughts flashed through Mu Tian and Mu Zheng's minds. Leave this person to me. You deal with the others and end the battle quickly. The black-robed man's voice rang out. A thin and long black sword appeared in his hand, and he thrust it at Mu Tian. The speed of this sword was shocking. Mu Tian's expression changed drastically as he quickly retreated. However, his body was not as fast as the sword light. The other party was at the 7th level of the spiritual ocean tier. His strength was much stronger than his. Don't hurt my father. At this moment, a delicate shout came from Tianxian City. A fiery red sword light flew out and collided with the sword light of the black-robed man. Clang! The black-robed man's sword light was blocked, and the fiery red sword light was also sent flying. Buzz! A figure rushed out from below and stood in front of Mu Tian. Lanner! Mu Tian called out. Mulan! The figure that appeared behind her was Mulan. Mulan stood in the air, a powerful aura exuding from her body. She was also at the 7th level of the spiritual ocean realm. Father, why didn't you call me? Mulan said. Lan you were in closed-door cultivation, so I didn't call you. Mu Tian said. Hee. I didn't expect that there would be such a beautiful girl here. What luck! The black-robed man's eyes were scanning Mulan's body with a fiery gaze. You're looking for death. Mulan shouted coldly. With the battle sword in hand, he charged towards the black-robed man. The two of them began to fight. For a moment, Mulan had the upper hand. After exchanging more than 10 moves, the black-robed man was completely at a disadvantage. Although their cultivation bases were similar, Mulan's combat strength was obviously above his. The more they fought, the more frightened the black-robed man became. Sixth brother, you've seen enough. Why aren't you attacking? Let's end this battle quickly. If we delay, there will be changes. The black-robed man suddenly shouted towards the sky. Hee. A second black-robed man appeared behind a cloud in the sky. This black-robed man's aura was even more shocking, reaching the 8th level of the spiritual ocean tier. Mu Tian and the others were shocked. The other party actually had so many experts. This little girl is mine. The black-robed man who appeared from behind looked at Mulan with a fiery gaze and spoke coldly. Alright, it's yours then. The black-robed man in front gritted his teeth. Whoosh! The second black-robed man turned into a black light and charged toward Mulan. With the two black-robed men working together, in addition to the second black-robed man's cultivation at the 8th level of the spiritual ocean tier, the pressure on Mulan increased greatly, and she was at a disadvantage for a moment. Chapter 1354. 1354 Chapter 1354. Returning to Tianxian City. Lanner! Mu Tian shouted worriedly. However, Mulan and the two black-robed men's cultivation levels were far above his, so he could not interfere at all. Mu Tian, you should worry about yourself. Saber Hung sneered and charged at Mu Tian. There was no longer any suspense in today's battle. As long as the two black-robed men could take down Mulan, it would be easy to deal with the others. As the battle continued, the situation became more and more disadvantageous for Tianxian City. Mulan was slowly falling into a disadvantageous position. Hee, this little girl is really beautiful. I've lived for so many years, but I've never seen such an alluring woman. The second black-robed man sneered. His attacks were like a violent storm, pouring down on Mulan. Mulan was panting heavily and sweating profusely. She couldn't hold on much longer. Boom! At this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly descended from the sky. This aura was like the ruler of the universe, vast and unfathomable, like the abyss and the sea. A terrifying pressure instantly enveloped the entire Tianxian city. Ah! Everyone from the Black Knife region, including Dao Hung and the two black-robed men, let out a blood-curdling screech. It was as if they had been hit by hundreds of mountains, and blood spurted out of their mouths. However, the strange thing was that Mu Tian, Mulan, and the rest of the Tianxian city people were completely fine. Everyone looked up into the sky and discovered that there was a blurry figure in the distant sky. It was shrouded in a halo like a god in the sky. He's the one. Mulan's expression changed. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. She bit her lip and flew down, disappearing from Tianxian city. Then, who is that? So strong. He's too strong. A heavenly deity. The martialists of Tianxian city looked up at the sky and spoke with dazed expressions. That aura made them look up to it and worship it. However, the aura only appeared for a very short time. As soon as it appeared, it was immediately retracted and disappeared. Then, the figure in the sky descended. Lu Ming, it's you? Mu Tian was the first to exclaim when he saw the figure. Yes, the figure that had suddenly appeared was Lu Ming. Just now, as soon as he arrived at Tianxian city, he found that there was a great battle going on there. In a fit of anger, he released his aura and injured the black-robed man and the people from the Black Knife region. He had been merciful. Otherwise, the black-robed man and the others would have been reduced to ashes under Lu Ming's aura. Not even a trace of them would have been left. Lu Ming, it's really you. Mu Jing saw Lu Ming and flew over. What? Lu Ming, it's him. Lu Ming is back. Oh my god. That terrifying aura just now was actually emitted by Lu Ming. What realm has Lu Ming reached now? The rest of the people in Tianxian City exclaimed in disbelief when they saw Lu Ming. They could not believe that the godlike aura just now was emitted by Lu Ming. Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists at Mu Zheng and Mu Tian. Lu Ming, why did you come back so suddenly? Mu Zheng was extremely happy to see Lu Ming. The Dragon Alliance is currently taking over the territory and forces of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace. I happened to be in 9 Dragons before, so I came back to take a look. Lu Ming said. Oh huh? What? The Dragon Alliance? Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others started to nod. They suddenly thought of something and exclaimed. Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the rest looked at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming. I heard that there was a world-shaking war in the holy city of the central continent. The one who dominated the war was called Lu Ming. Also, the Dragon Alliance has swept the world. I heard that the leader of the Dragon Alliance is called Lu Ming. Then, was it you? Mu Tian stammered as he spoke. Mu Zheng, and the rest were also staring at Lu Ming. Cough, cough, that was indeed me. Lu Ming coughed dryly. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Mu Tian, Mu Zheng, and the others gasped and were stunned. Even though they had such a guess before, they still found it hard to believe after it was confirmed. It was as if they were dreaming. The Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance, the Overlord of the Divine Wilderness Continent, was actually Lu Ming, the Lu Ming who had come from the Tianxian region. It was too shocking. They were stunned for a moment before they reacted, then they were overjoyed. They were certain that it was Lu Ming. That was because the aura that Lu Ming had just released was too shocking. He was like a god, like the master of the world. Compared to him, they were simply ants or even worse. However, one of them had a complicated look in his eyes. He was filled with anxiety. That was Mui. In the past, he had targeted Lu Ming in every way. Now if Lu Ming wanted to settle the score with him, he didn't dare to continue thinking. Seniors, let's take a look at these people first. Lu Ming opened his mouth and sucked with his palm. The 2 black-robed men and Dao Heng were sucked over. Spare me, Lu Ming, no, Alliance Master Lu, spare me. Dao Heng shouted in shock. The 2 black-robed men were also trembling and begging for mercy. They had also heard the conversation between Lu Ming and the group just now. They were almost scared to death. This young man who had suddenly appeared was the newly established Alliance Master of the Dragon Alliance. Why would such an important figure suddenly appear in the tiny Tianxian city? It seemed like he was acquainted with Mu Tian and the others. Dao Heng and the others thought that they were dreaming, a terrible nightmare. Speak. Who ordered you to do this? Lu Ming's gaze turned cold as he berated them. Dao Heng and the rest were so frightened that they trembled all over. It was obvious that there was someone else behind the 2 black-robed men. It's the Blood Vulture sect. We're disciples of the Blood Vulture sect. The Blood Vulture sect wants to take advantage of the destruction of the Empyrean Heaven Divine Palace to secretly plunder a batch of treasures and strengthen their strength. The black-robed man who appeared first called out and told everything, not daring to hide anything. So it's the Blood Vulture sect. Mu Tian's expression changed. The Blood Ridge sect was the most powerful force in the surrounding dozens of large domains. It was said that it had a spiritual god expert. In the past, it had always relied on the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, and was a subsidiary sect of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Now that the news of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace's destruction had spread, the Blood Ridge sect could no longer sit still, and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune. The Blood Ridge sect no longer needs to exist. A cold glint flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. He then struck out with his palm. Boom! A huge crack appeared in the space under Lu Ming's palm, revealing a pitch-black void passage. Boom! The space passage trembled. Everyone could see that the other side of the space passage also cracked open. revealing an incomparably majestic mountain. Blood mist permeated the mountain. The Blood Ridge Sect. This was the Blood Ridge Sect. Die! Lu Ming shouted as he flipped his hand and pressed down. Everyone watched in horror as a huge palm formed above the Blood Ridge Sect. It covered the sky and pressed down on the Blood Ridge Sect. One after another, figures from the Blood Ridge Sect flew out of the giant mountain in fear, trying to escape. However, they all collapsed under the palm, their bodies and souls destroyed. Chapter 1355. 1355 Mulan's Thoughts. Mu Tian, Mu Zheng Mu Yi, and the rest had never seen such an unbelievable scene before. They were completely dumbstruck as they stood there in a daze, their eyes as big as chicken eggs. The two black-robed men trembled uncontrollably as if they were thieves. In their eyes, such a technique was like a legend. In fact, such a method was nothing to an emperor. Any ordinary emperor could cross billions of miles to kill an enemy. However, the further the distance, the less powerful it would be. Ordinary sovereigns could cross the void to kill their enemies, and even supreme beings would not be able to deal with them. Therefore, ordinary sovereigns would not do this when they encountered a powerful enemy. With Lu Ming's current combat strength, it was a piece of cake for him to annihilate a sect that only had a spiritual god realm cultivator across hundreds of millions of miles. However, Lu Ming did not kill the Blood Ridge sect's martial artists with lower cultivation. The ones he killed were all above the Sea of Soul realm. Thousands of powerhouses were turned into ashes by Lu Ming's palm, including the spiritual god powerhouse who was the leader. Whoosh! Suddenly, a beam of blood-red light shot into the sky from the Blood Ridge sect and fled into the distance. Blood Emperor of Cold Blood Hall. So you're the one behind this? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold and he shouted coldly. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that the beam of blood-red light from the Blood Ridge sect was the Blood Emperor from Cold Blood Hall. Back when Cold Blood Hall attacked the floating mountain, he led his men to rescue the floating mountain and besieged Cold Blood Hall. The Blood Emperor of Cold Blood Hall was severely injured by Mo Yi and Martial Emperor Yuexin, and only the spiritual god managed to escape. During this period of time, the Blood Emperor had not appeared. Lu Ming thought that the Blood Emperor's spiritual god had dissipated and his body and soul had been destroyed. He did not expect that the Blood Emperor's spiritual god would possess a body in a remote place like the East Baron. Until now, his cultivation had just recovered to the 7th level of the spiritual god realm. He was the one controlling the Blood Ridge sect from behind the scenes and plundering treasures from all over the place in order to help him recover. You want to leave? Where to? Lu Ming's glabella glowed. He took a step forward and rushed into the void passageway. At the same time, he waved his hand, and a phoenix feather flying sword flew out. It appeared on the other side of the void passageway in an instant, and slashed at the Blood Emperor. The Blood Emperor let out an unreconciled scream, as he was cut in half by the phoenix feather flying sword. He died on the spot. Buzz! He kept the phoenix feather flying sword, and returned from the void passageway. It entered the space between Lu Ming's eyebrows. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the space crack disappeared. However, Mu Tian and the others still had not recovered from their shock. They stood there in a daze. The series of events just now was simply too shocking. Was this the technique of the divine wilderness continent's peak experts? Was this the means of an emperor? It was like a legend. Some people even felt a chill run down their spines. Such a method was truly inconceivable. No wonder everyone was so respectful to the emperor, and did not dare to show the slightest disrespect. That was because if you offended an emperor, the emperor could kill you from hundreds of millions of miles away. After a long while, Mu Tian and the rest came to their senses. When they looked at Lu Ming, their eyes were filled with deep respect. This was respect for power. Alliance Master, we already said that we can. Can you spare my dog life? One of the black-robed men said in a trembling voice. Did I promise to let you go? Lu Ming said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, the two black-robed men, and the experts who had come to attack Tianxian City, were turned into ashes in an instant. It seems that I have to take down these small sects as soon as possible. Lu Ming muttered. Now that the overlord forces have been destroyed, the small forces under them would definitely be in chaos and start fighting. Only by taking them down as soon as possible and tidying them up could they avoid unnecessary killing. "Oh right, where's senior sister Mulan?" Lu Ming asked. "Lan Mu Tian Mu Zheng," and the others looked around, but did not see Mulan. For a moment, they stammered and did not know what to say. "Is senior sister Mulan not here? Then forget it." After pondering for a moment, Lu Ming smiled. Mu Tian and the others sighed in their hearts. "Seniors, Lu Ming still has something to do and has to rush to Nine Dragons. If you want to leave the Tianxian region and move to the central continent in the future, feel free to send someone to inform me," Lu Ming said. "We've lived in the Tianxian region for our entire lives and are used to it. We appreciate Alliance Master's good intentions," Mu Tian said. He had unconsciously changed the way he addressed her. Lu Ming naturally noticed it too. He sighed in his heart, but did not say much. Now, he was no longer the Lu Ming of the past, the teenager. He was now the noble leader of the Dragon Alliance, and had dominated the world. Mu Tian and the others had changed their attitude towards him, and were respectful of him. This was something that could not be helped. After that, Lu Ming bade farewell to Mu Tian and the rest and headed to Nine Dragons. After Lu Ming left, a figure flew out of a pavilion in Tianxian City. It was Mulan. "Lan why didn't you come out to meet me just now?" Mu Tian asked. Mulan looked in the direction that Lu Ming had left in. Her eyes were filled with longing, but there were more complicated emotions in them. "My talent is far inferior to Lu Ming's. As time passes, the gap between us will only grow wider and wider. He and I are people from two different worlds." Mulan sighed. Mu Tian Mu Zheng and the others also sighed. "Even if I come out and stay by his side, what's the use? We can't grow old together." Mulan continued. That's right, her current cultivation was only at the spiritual ocean tier. She was very clear about her own talent. In this lifetime, the spirit embryo realm was her limit. She had almost no hope of reaching the spiritual god realm. However, a spirit embryo realm cultivator's lifespan was only 3,000 years. On the other hand, Lu Ming had a long lifespan. Even emperors could live for 10 to 20,000 years. If Lu Ming's cultivation level improved, his lifespan would be even longer. Even if she got together with Lu Ming, they would not be able to spend the rest of their lives together. Moreover, the person in Lu Ming's heart is not me. In the end, Mulan let out a long sigh before she turned around and returned to Tianxian City. Back then, Mulan had entered a secluded sect to cultivate in hopes of catching up to Lu Ming. However, she realized that the distance between them was growing further and further. It was so far that she could no longer catch up. In the end, all the friendship he had turned into a long sigh. Mulan was not the only one sighing. Hundreds of millions of miles away from Tianxian City, Lu Ming stood in the sky and sighed. Mulan was in Tianxian City, so he had naturally discovered her long ago. However, how could he not guess Mulan's thoughts? In that situation, he could only play dumb. Otherwise, what could he do even if he met Mulan? How should they get along? Lu Ming could only suppress the ignorant friendship he had when he was young. He took a step forward, and the space cracked open. Lu Ming disappeared into the space channel. After Lu Ming returned to Nine Dragons, he sped up the integration of the small forces and sections. Wherever the Dragon Alliance went, those small forces and sects naturally surrendered and joined the Dragon Alliance. Even if there were some obstacles, they would be suppressed by the lightning. The Dragon Alliance had officially infiltrated every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent and ruled the world. Of course, Lu Ming did not know that a crisis was approaching him. In the blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. Chapter 1356. 1356. The vast imperial dragon city. In the northern plains, in a courtyard of the 100 Beasts tribe, Lu Ming was teaching his 2 unnamed disciples Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro. After Lu Ming's rise, he had ample resources. He had all sorts of esoteric crystals, elixirs, and other things. Therefore, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro's cultivation had also progressed very quickly. Now they had both broken through to the Sea of Souls realm. Xiaoshan, although you've made rapid progress in your Earth Intent realm by using intent crystals, you haven't excavated enough of it. In the future, you have to comprehend more and excavate more. It'll be of great help to your future cultivation. Do you understand? Lu Ming pointed at Zhuang Xiaoshan. Understood, master. Zhuang Xiaoshan quickly nodded. The two siblings looked at Lu Ming with eyes full of admiration. Although the two of them were only Lu Ming's in-name disciples, Lu Ming did not have any true disciples at all. He only had two in-name disciples. Hence, they had a very special status in the Dragon Alliance. Many experts, even emperors, would be very polite to them. In the past, they would not have dared to imagine this. But now it was happening right before their eyes. They understood that all of this was because of Lu Ming. Without Lu Ming, they would be nothing. Even spirit embryo realm martial artists would regard them as ants, let alone emperors. But now, they only needed to say a word, and countless spirit embryo realm, and even spiritual god realm experts would risk their lives for them. In fact, even the emperor would help them. All of this was because of Lu Ming. They also understood that they were not very talented. In the Divine Wilderness continent, there were many people who were more talented than them. They were lucky to become Lu Ming's in-name disciples. It was a blessing that they had cultivated for several lifetimes. Therefore they cultivated very hard. Xiaoshan, I'll display the earth concept for you to comprehend carefully. Lu Ming's voice interrupted Zhuang Xiaoshan's complicated thoughts. He quickly focused. Boom! The aura of the will of the earth bloomed from Lu Ming's body. The thick and heavy will of the earth enveloped Zhuang Xiaoshan. Zhuang Xiaoshan immediately closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, and quietly comprehended. Xiao Rou, come over here and feel the water concept. Lu Ming said to Zhuang Xiaoro. Yes, master. Yes, Zhuang Xiaoro replied obediently. She blinked her big eyes and looked at Lu Ming with admiration. In comparison, Zhuang Xiaoro was more talented than Zhuang Xiaoshan. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the concept of water spread out. Like a river, it enveloped Zhuang Xiaoro. Zhuang Xiaoro quickly sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend. Throughout the journey, Lu Ming only had time to teach these two disciples because he was free during this period of time. In the past 2 months, everything had been developing in an orderly manner. Some time ago, Lu Ming had invited 9 sovereigns to cleanse Li Ping's meridians and marrow with the serum as the foundation. Li Ping had been reborn from an ordinary mortal who could not cultivate and had become an extremely talented martial arts genius. During this period of time, she had been cultivating with Lu Yuntian, and her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. Of course, Lu Ming had also helped Lu Yuntian, Hua Qi, and the others to improve their physiques and talents. Their cultivation base had improved by leaps and bounds. At the same time, Lu Ming sent out a purchase order to the entire Divine Wilderness continent. He was willing to purchase the 7 main spiritual ingredients for the Nirvana elixir at a high price, hoping to refine another batch of Nirvana elixir. The progress was rather smooth. During this period of time, he had already collected 5 out of the 7 main mystical materials. It was beyond Lu Ming's expectations. The greater part of the construction of Dragon Emperor City had been completed. Zhang Tai believed that it would be fully completed in 2 months. Therefore, the higher-ups of the Dragon Alliance decided to hold an alliance ceremony in the Imperial Dragon City 3 months later to announce to the world that the Dragon Alliance was officially established. At the same time, they would give each of the powerful figures and each of the major forces their own territory. The entire Divine Wilderness continent was looking forward to that day. When that day came, the world would celebrate. In the western part of the Divine Wilderness continent, across the vast ocean, there was a continent called the White Feather Continent. This continent was the strongest continent in the southern Divine Palace of the Divine Ruins Continent Group. It was ranked 4th in the Divine Ruins Continent Group. In the eastern part of the White Feather Continent, in a wild valley, there was a cloud of blood mist surging wildly. It kept rolling and rolling. It was terrifying. The valley was filled with the bones of demonic beasts. Judging from the aura emitted by the skeletons, they were all extremely powerful existences. Most of them were advanced spiritual gods, and there were even quite a few supreme-level ones. After a while, the blood mist disappeared, revealing a figure. It was Di. "Damn it, Lu Ming, I'll definitely tear you into pieces." Di roared, full of murderous intent. Now his aura was several times weaker than before. He was only at the first level of the martial emperor realm. Also, the 10,000 meridian spirit body that he had cultivated for 10,000 years had been completely burned away when he was escaping for his life. Damn it! My myriad meridian spirit body was about to succeed and become an earth-grade spirit body. By then, my cultivation speed and combat strength would definitely increase greatly. I would definitely be valued by the family. It's all Lu Ming's fault. Di kept roaring and was extremely agitated. After a long time, he calmed down a little. The clan should have received the news that I've sent to them. The experts in the clan should be here soon. Lu Ming, I'll make you wish you were dead. Di's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Divine Wilderness Continent, Northern Plains. 3 hours later, Zhuang Xiaoshan and Zhuang Xiaoro woke up from their enlightenment. All right, go back and comprehend it well. I'll test you after a while and see the results of your cultivation. Lu Ming instructed. Yes, master. Disciple will take my leave. Zhuang Xiaoro and Zhuang Xiaoshan bowed and left. Let's take a look in Dragon Emperor City. Lu Ming stood up, took a step forward and disappeared. Not long after, Lu Ming arrived at the Imperial Dragon City. More than half of the Imperial Dragon City had been built. The construction of the Imperial Dragon City was done by martial arts and inscription masters, selected from all the major forces, and even with the help of emperors. However, it still took such a long time, which showed how vast and majestic the project was. Lu Ming stood high in the sky above the Imperial Dragon City. He could not see the end of the city. At the 4 gates of the Imperial Dragon City, there was a 10,000 feet tall statue. The owner of the statue was Lu Ming. Entering from the south gate, there was a passage called the Path of the Divine Dragon. It led to a square paved with white jade. There were countless seats around the square, which were prepared to receive guests from all directions. The entire Imperial Dragon City was built on the original Longyu Mountain. Longyu Mountain originally had a huge eye of Tao. Cultivating here would help one comprehend the essence realm of heaven and earth much faster. After that, several emperors moved a few more Taoist eyes from other places with great superpowers, making the artistic conception of the Imperial Dragon City even clearer. Moreover, the emperors had worked together to transfer a few spiritual eyes over. In addition, the emperors who cultivated the Tao of inscription had inscribed the energy-gathering formation here. So the spiritual qi here was so dense that it was almost impossible to disperse. The entire Dragon Emperor City became a holy land for cultivation. Chapter 1357. 1357 Chapter 1357, Entering the 9 Dragon Ruins. Lu Ming took a look and was very satisfied. Then he looked to the east. There was a place that he had to visit, and that was the remains of 9 dragons. During this period of time, Lu Ming had refined the drop of 9 dragons' blood essence that he had obtained from De and integrated it into the blood of the 9 dragons. He had obtained more memory fragments of the 9 dragons. It was time to go to the ruins of 9 dragons. He took a step forward, and the space cracked automatically. Lu Ming's figure disappeared without a trace. The relic of the 9 dragons was located at the border between the East Baron and the Central Continent, in the chaotic area. Lu Ming's figure appeared in the chaotic realm silently and headed toward the 9 dragons' ruins. As Lu Ming flew, the area in front of him became more and more desolate. There was not a single blade of grass in the vast mountains. It was a barren land, as if all the vitality had been devoured by something. Further ahead, the lonely mountain turned into a desert, even more deathly silent. When Lu Ming arrived at the center of the desert, he saw a cave. It was an unfathomably deep cave, pitch black, and it led to the depths of the earth. At the edge of the cave, there was a dark yellow stone tablet with a line of words written on it. Those above the emperor level would die if they entered. Each word was filled with killing intent. It was as if there was a terrifying killing intent in them, making people feel cold all over. As expected, Lu Ming's heart stirred. There had always been a legend that no one above the emperor level could enter the ruins of the 9 dragons. Entering meant death. That was why Martial Emperor De didn't dare to enter himself, but let 9 Sons Supreme enter. Lu Ming's glabella glowed, and he appeared next to her. The second body had already broken through to the emperor realm, and could not enter. Buzz! Lu Ming's main body did not hesitate, and rushed into the dark cave. As soon as he entered, a terrifying force came from the cave, causing Lu Ming's body to sink, as if he was carrying tens of thousands of mountains on his back. Moreover, the speed of his descent was getting faster and faster. Stop! In Lu Ming's body, the essential core burst forth to resist the force. Although there was some effect, the effect was not very good. It was just that the speed of decline had slowed down a little. It was only when Lu Ming used the chaos concept that he was able to resist the force and control his body freely. Lu Ming controlled himself and descended at an even speed. The cave was unfathomably deep. Lu Ming could feel that he had descended a few hundred miles, but he was still going deeper. Moreover, at the edge of the cave, Lu Ming felt a terrifying murderous intent more than once. It was as if a wave of energy swept across his body and then retracted. Lu Ming guessed that if his cultivation level surpassed the emperor level, he would be attacked. Lu Ming estimated that he had finally reached the bottom after descending for about 1,000 miles. With a sweep of his gaze, the bottom of the cave was covered in a thick layer of bones. Some of the bones were crystal clear, as if they were made of fine jade. Some of the bones were golden, as if they were made of gold. It was easy to imagine that the owners of these bones must have been extremely powerful people, or even emperors, but they were buried here in the end. One could imagine how dangerous the 9 dragon ruins was. Lu Ming landed on the ground of the cave, and still felt a strong pressure. His movements were greatly affected. His movements slowed down, and it became difficult for him to fly. In front of the cave, there was a straight cave that was still dark. Lu Ming circulated his essential core, and walked 100 meters with each step. He passed by the skeletons, and walked towards the cave ahead. Roar! But before he could go far, a dragon's roar sounded. A blood dragon that seemed to be formed from blood mist pounced at Lu Ming. A true dragon. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. This blood dragon had 5 dragon claws on its abdomen. It was a 5-clawed true dragon. Buzz! The 5-clawed blood dragon pounced at Lu Ming with shocking power. Supreme martial artist. This 5-clawed blood dragon had the combat strength of a supreme being. Boom! Lu Ming's fist landed on the blood dragon's claw. The powerful force crushed the blood dragon's claw. Then the fist force crushed the blood dragon's body, and it collapsed. Lu Ming continued to move forward. Roar! Roar! He had just walked about 1,000 meters when another dragon's roar was heard. This time there were 2. 2 5-clawed blood dragons appeared and charged toward Lu Ming. They were also at the supreme being level. Naturally, it was easily defeated by Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to move forward, but not long after, 3 blood dragons appeared. As he continued, more and more blood dragons appeared. In the end, 9 5-clawed blood dragons appeared together. It was equivalent to 9 supremes besieging Lu Ming. With Lu Ming's combat strength, it was not difficult for him to defeat them one by one. However, after passing through the siege of the 9 blood dragons, Lu Ming was attacked again when he continued to move forward. This time, only 3 blood dragons appeared. However, The difference was that each of the 3 blood dragons had 6 dragon claws on their abdomens. The combat strength of a 6-clawed blood dragon was much higher than a 5-clawed blood dragon. However, they were still no match for Lu Ming. As Lu Ming charged through, the number of 6-clawed blood dragons increased. After Lu Ming broke through the siege of 9 6-clawed blood dragons, another 7-clawed blood dragon appeared. The difficulty level was getting higher and higher. Lu Ming arrived at an underground stone room after he passed through 9 blood dragons with 7 claws. Lu Ming discovered that there were a few boxes in the stone room. However, the boxes had been opened, and there was nothing inside. This must be the place Senior Zhuyang came to in the past. Lu Ming muttered. He had asked Xia Zhuyang about the 9 dragon ruins before, and Xia Zhuyang had told him in detail. Back then, Xia Zhuyang had passed through 9 7-clawed blood dragons to come to this stone chamber. The 2 drops of 9 dragon blood essence, the 9 dragons heaven-stomping steps, and the True War Dragon Technique Foundation Establishment Chapter were all obtained from here. They were all placed in these boxes. Back then, the 9 Suns Supreme had reached his limit. If he continued, he would have to face the 8-clawed blood dragon, whose combat strength was even more amazing. Xia Zhuyang was no match for him at all. Continue. Lu Ming strode forward and walked to the cave in front of the stone room. As expected, the blood dragons that appeared in front of him each had 8 dragon claws and shocking combat strength. The combat strength of one was equivalent to a human supreme who had awakened a 9th-level divine bloodline. It was extremely powerful. However, it still could not stop Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to pass through the levels. After defeating the 9 8-clawed blood dragons, a deafening dragon's roar was heard. A gigantic 9-clawed dragon appeared in front of Lu Ming. Yes, it was 9 dragons with 9 dragon claws. Although his aura was also at the Supreme Being level, Lu Ming felt that he was extremely dangerous. Roar! The 9 dragon bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's head, and he transformed into 9 dragons. Roar! Roar! The 2 9 dragons pounced on each other. The 9 dragons here were so powerful that even an ordinary martial royal realm expert would not be their match. They were at least equivalent to a 2nd-level martial royal realm expert. In the beginning, Lu Ming was not his match. He only started to suppress his opponent after he cast the Chaos Will. One of them is already so strong. If there are more, or even 9 of them, how can we fight them? Lu Ming's expression was grave. Chapter 1358. 1358 Gathering of the Blood Essence of 9 Dragons. Lu Ming was confident that he could win if there were only 1, but if there were 2 or 3, Lu Ming could only barely maintain a tie. If there were 9, Lu Ming could only run away in defeat. Could it be that even he couldn't pass it? Or perhaps, he could only pass it after he broke through to the Supreme Being realm? Lu Ming had a few thoughts. After a few more moves, Lu Ming rose and tore the 9 blood-red dragons apart. Unexpectedly, after the 9 crimson dragons were torn apart, Lu Ming continued to move forward, but no other 9 crimson dragons appeared. After walking for a while, a huge underground cave appeared in front of him. As soon as Lu Ming entered, he heard a series of dragon roars. However, he could only hear the dragon's roar and not see its body. That's... Lu Ming's gaze was fixed on the air in the cave. He was completely attracted. 7 blood-red beads floated in the air above the underground cave. Each bead seemed to be made of blood-red jade. They were smooth and round, and they emitted shocking energy fluctuations. Blood essence, the blood essence of 9 dragons. Lu Ming's eyes brightened, and his heart started to beat rapidly. He had finally found the blood essence of 9 dragons. The remaining 7 drops of 9 dragon blood essence. Roar! As if it had sensed something, Lu Ming's spine heated up. The 9 dragon bloodline flew out on its own and opened its mouth to roar. Buzz! Whoosh! The 7 drops of 9 dragon blood essence also trembled. Each drop was suffused with blood light, and a small dragon flew out, resonating with the bloodline of the 9 dragons. Refine it! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He controlled the 9 dragons' blood and swallowed 1 drop of the 9 dragons' blood essence. Boom! As soon as the drop of 9 dragon blood essence entered the mouth of the 9 dragon bloodline, it exploded and turned into infinite energy, fusing with the 9 dragon bloodline. Lu Ming sat cross-legged and continued refining after refining 1 drop. With every drop refined, a piece of information would appear in Lu Ming's mind. It was the memory fragments of the 9 dragons. Of course, Lu Ming's cultivation level did not increase. The energy in the blood essence was all integrated into the 9 dragon bloodlines. It seemed to be stored and made the 9 dragon bloodlines more and more real, almost like real 9 dragons. After 7 days, 7 drops of 9 dragon blood essence were completely integrated into the bloodline of the 9 dragons. At this moment, there was a lot of information in Lu Ming's mind. They were all fragments of the 9 dragons' memory. These fragments slowly overlapped and formed a complete message. True War Dragon Technique Metamorphosis, Stage Dragon God Combat Body. Lu Ming's face revealed a smile. The True War Dragon technique that he had cultivated before was the foundation stage. The main content of the Foundation Establishment chapter was the content before the Martial Emperor realm. After the Martial Emperor realm, the Foundation Establishment chapter was useless and required the subsequent chapters. Now he finally got it. The extraordinary chapter of the True War Dragon Technique Dragon God Combat Body, as the name suggested, was mainly about the cultivation of the spirit body. The cultivation of a spirit body was to integrate the bloodline into the physical body and turn it into a higher-level spirit body through the tempering of the lightning tribulation. In other words, those below the rank of Martial Emperor were still mortals, while those above the rank of Martial Emperor had already transcended mortals and reached a higher level. The extraordinary section was to transform the bloodline of the 9 dragons into the physical body and cultivate a spirit body. This spirit body was called the Dragon God Combat Body and was extremely powerful. From the 9 dragons' memories, Lu Ming knew that spirit bodies were also divided into levels. They were divided into ordinary spiritual body, earth spiritual body, and heaven spiritual body. Each level was further divided into lower, middle, and upper grades. According to the 9 dragons' memories and experience, in the Divine Wilderness continent, and even the Divine Ruins continent, most of the spirit bodies of the emperors were low-tier ordinary spirit bodies, with a small number of them being mid-tier ordinary spirit bodies. Xiao Wan's immortal demon body and Xia Zhiyang's 9 young divine body should be superior ordinary spirit bodies. If Di Yi's Myriad Meridian's spiritual body was successfully cultivated, it was likely to be a low-grade earth spiritual body. A low-grade earth spiritual body was extremely powerful and much stronger than a normal spiritual body. It was a pity that Di had spent 10,000 years stripping away the bloodlines and essence blood of various experts, but he had not succeeded in cultivating it. It was not perfect, and its power was only equivalent to that of a superior ordinary spirit body. That was why he wanted to steal Lu Ming's 9 dragons' blood essence. His goal was to cultivate the Myriad Meridian spirit body. If he could successfully cultivate it, he would be invincible among emperors of the same level. Killing emperors of the same level would be a piece of cake for him, and even fighting against those of a higher level would be normal. If Lu Ming were to successfully cultivate the Dragon God Combat Body, he would have a low-grade earthly spiritual body after he became a martial emperor. Most importantly, the Dragon God Combat Body could be upgraded, just like his previous bloodline, which could be upgraded continuously. Lu Ming was very tempted by this. Another thing that tempted Lu Ming was that if he cultivated his spirit body with the 9 dragons' bloodline and transformed into the Dragon God Combat Body, he might be able to retain the 9 dragons' devour skill. In the past, Lu Ming had been struggling with which blood meridian he should use to cultivate the spirit body when he broke through to the Martial Emperor realm. The prison-suppressing steel bloodline seemed to be stronger than the 9 dragons' bloodline. As for the third bloodline, it was even more mysterious. But now, Lu Ming had made up his mind to cultivate the spirit body with the 9-dragon bloodline. He could keep the prison-suppressing steel and the 3rd bloodline. He felt that even after he broke through to the Emperor realm, these 2 bloodlines would still be of great use to him. Next, Lu Ming looked at other memories. Yes, it's much less. After a while, Lu Ming had an idea. Originally, he had thought that he would be able to obtain the complete memories of the 9 dragons after fusing with the 9 drops of blood essence. But now, he realized that it wasn't the case. A large portion of his memories were blank. For example, where did the 9 dragons come from? What had happened back then? With the 9 dragons' combat strength, why had they fallen? Who killed the 9 dragons? What happened in the heavenly realm? These important memories were a complete blank. Could it be that the 9 dragons did this on purpose before they died? Lu Ming made a guess. However, although he didn't have these memories, the other memories were still priceless treasures. In his memory, there were some powerful combat skills that could only be cultivated after breaking through to the Emperor realm or higher. Every single one of them was a priceless treasure. At the same time, through the 9 dragons' memories, Lu Ming finally knew the cultivation realms after that. After the martial emperor, it was the martial saint. Martial saints were also known as the saint realm or saint realm. A martial saint could live for more than 100,000 years. They were unparalleled in battle strength and could dominate the world. Compared to them, emperors were thousands of miles away. However, the martial saint realm was not the highest realm, nor was it the peak. Above the martial saint realm was the peak, which was the martial sovereign. A martial emperor was also known as a great emperor. This was the true pinnacle of the world. Their lifespans were almost endless, and they stood at the peak of the world. They were unbelievably powerful. With a wave of their hands, they could probably destroy a mainland like the divine wilderness continent. This world did not only refer to the primordial realm, but also the heaven realm. A martial emperor was a peak expert. Back then, the 9 dragons were at this realm, and the top 10 war beasts were all at this realm. Martial emperor, great emperor. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with yearning. His goal was to stand at the peak of the world. He had to become a martial supreme in the future. Lu Ming's fists were clenched tightly. Chapter 1359. 1359 Chapter 1359, Condensing the Prototype Domain. Lu Ming closed his eyes and quietly digested part of the 9 dragons' memory. This part of the memory was very precious. It included the knowledge of many natural treasures, and most importantly, the cultivation experience of the 9 dragons. Jiu Long was a powerhouse at the peak of the martial supreme realm. How precious was his cultivation essence experience? Lu Ming slowly digested the information. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. Lu Ming finally opened his eyes. There was a hint of solemnness in his eyes. The 9 dragons' memories also contained information regarding the chaos intent. In the 9 dragons' memories, the chaos intent was the king of all intents in the world. It was extremely powerful, but it was also extremely difficult to cultivate. Especially when it came to breaking through, it was extremely difficult to turn intent into a domain. Lu Ming had known about this for a long time. When he used the domain solidifying pill back then, it did not have much of an effect. Even if a normal martial artist did not have a domain solidifying pill, he could slowly dissolve the intent runes and merge them into his spiritual spirit in 1 or 2 years. However, the difficulty of cultivating the chaos concept was more than 100 times that of ordinary concepts. In other words, if Lu Ming cultivated step by step, he would need at least 100 years to cultivate a prototype domain and step into the supreme level. 100 years was too long. It was too long for Lu Ming. No, these 100 years are the golden years for me to practice. If I spend more than 100 years practicing the chaos, it'll be equivalent to killing my potential. Not only will the other geniuses leave me far behind, but my potential will also be exhausted, and my future achievements will be limited. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. After a long while, Lu Ming gritted his teeth, a hint of ruthlessness in his eyes. Go all out. Let's go all out. According to the cultivation experience of the 9 dragons, Lu Ming found a way. This method could allow Lu Ming to condense an embryonic stage of the domain in a short period of time. However, it was very risky. If he was not careful, his cultivation would regress, and it would be difficult for him to improve. In the worst case, both his body and soul would be destroyed. However, Lu Ming still decided to give it a try. Any peak expert had experienced many difficulties and tribulations. No one had ever heard of anyone who could reach the peak smoothly. Fight! Lu Ming made his decision. Moreover, it was right here. Other than him, no one else should be able to break into this place. It was the best place to cultivate in seclusion and break through. He closed his eyes. After a long time, Lu Ming's heart sank into an empty state, and he adjusted his condition to the best. Roar! Then the 9-dragon bloodline emerged. With a loud roar, it rushed into Lu Ming's glabella and appeared in his sea of consciousness. Somewhere in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, a concept rune was suspended, and it was filled with a chaotic radiance. It was Lu Ming's chaos concept rune. Suddenly, the 9-dragon bloodline emerged near the chaos intent rune. Roar! Suddenly, the bloodline of the 9 dragons roared and pounced toward the chaos intent rune. A dragon claw grabbed the intent rune. Boom! The intent runes let out a loud rumble. Lu Ming felt as if the entire world had been turned upside down, and a tearing pain came from his mind. He only recovered after a long time. Again! Die! Lu Ming shouted angrily. The 9 dragons continued to claw at the chaos concept runes. Yes, this was Lu Ming's method. He used a brutal method to blast open the chaos runes, and then used a brutal method to merge them into the spiritual god. Such a method was absolutely crazy. If others were to find out about it, they would be scared to death. But without a doubt, it was the most effective and time-saving method. Boom! 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 In his sea of consciousness, the 9 dragons were constantly attacking the chaos runes. In the beginning, the 9 dragons only used 1 dragon claw. Slowly, the number of dragon claws increased, and they used 2, then 3. 10 days later, the 9 dragon claws of the 9 dragons attacked the chaos runes together. The runes shook violently. Kacha! At some point, the chaos intent rune made a cracking sound, and a crack appeared on it. At this moment, Lu Ming's body trembled violently, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. However, there was no panic in Lu Ming's eyes. Instead, there was joy. Continue. The 9 dragons continued to bombard the runes. As time passed, more and more cracks appeared on the runes. Another 10 days passed. Suddenly bang! The chaos concept rune exploded, and blood spurted out of Lu Ming's mouth. A crack even appeared between his eyebrows, and blood flowed out. But Lu Ming could not care about that. Melt! Go! Lu Ming roared. The spiritual god in his dantian emitted a strong suction force that attracted the chaos concept rune fragment to the spiritual god. Hoo-hoo! All of the chaos intent fragments flew into the spiritual god. At this moment, the spiritual god swelled up and emitted thousands of rays of light, almost exploding. This step was the most dangerous. If he was not careful, his spiritual spirit would explode, his physical body would collapse, and his soul would be destroyed. Suppress! With a thought, the prison-suppressing steel's bloodline appeared in his dantian. It floated above the spiritual god and suppressed him. At the same time, the third bloodline appeared above Lu Ming's head. Waves of energy enveloped Lu Ming. This was the complete plan. Lu Ming had no cultivation experience in the 9 Dragons sect. He combined it with his own conditions and set up a complete plan. He used his 3 bloodlines to complete this step. The spiritual god that was on the verge of collapse was finally suppressed and was fusing with the chaos intent fragment to form a domain. Lu Ming closed his eyes and focused on cultivation. Time passed day by day. An endless distance away from the divine wilderness continent, in a hidden place on the White Feather continent, there was a messy stone forest. In the stone forest, there was an old stone platform. Di stood by the stone platform, waiting anxiously. Buzz! All of a sudden, the stone platform began to glow. The glow grew brighter and brighter, until it formed a vortex on the stone platform. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the black vortex. 1, 2, and in the end, a total of 10 figures appeared and flew out of the vortex. As soon as the 10 figures flew out, the vortex on the stone platform disappeared. As soon as he saw the 10 people, Di's face immediately showed respect. The leader of the 10 people was dressed in luxurious clothes. His eyes were long and narrow, and when he opened and closed them, a sharp light flashed. Behind the young man, there were 9 people. There were old men and burly men. All of them had powerful auras, giving off an extremely dangerous feeling. Di from the Di family's side branch pays his respects to young Master Di Xian. Di quickly bowed to the young man. You are Di. The young man glanced at Di with a faint disdain. I am Di. Di said hurriedly. Humph, Di, you are really useless. You can't even take down a divine wilderness continent. Di Xian scolded coldly. Di's face was ugly, but he did not dare to refute. Chapter 1360. 1360 Di's Secret. Breaking through to the Supreme Being level. Di, your goal was originally the continent group of the Divine Ruins. According to the task given to you by the family back then, if you could unify the continent group of the Divine Ruins by yourself, you could return to the Di family and become a direct descendant of the Di family. Unfortunately, it seems that you have no hope. Di Xian sneered. Di lowered his head even more, and his eyes flashed with raging anger. It was all Lu Ming's fault. It was all because of Lu Ming that he had ruined his plan. The Di family originated from the Yuan continent and was a powerful force there. As for Di, he was a branch disciple of the Di family, so his status was low. However, there was a rule in the Di family. As for those from the branch family, if they wanted to join the direct line, obtain the status of the direct line, and even obtain the cultivation conditions and resources of the direct line, they had to complete a task assigned by the Di family. Di's mission was to unify the continent group of the Divine Ruins with his own power. This mission wasn't considered to be very difficult among the missions of the Di family. However, Di's talent was limited. He had come to the continent group of the Divine Ruins 10,000 years ago. However, at that time, his cultivation level had just broken through to the Martial Emperor realm. That was why he chose the Divine Wilderness continent, which was not very strong, to set up the Emperor Sky Divine Palace and begin his plan. At the same time, he would strengthen his cultivation and cultivate the spirit body of 10,000 meridians. Now his plan was slowly maturing. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the Lever 2 Martial Royal Realm. He had obtained the Myriad Meridian's spirit body by chance, and was just one step away from perfection. He was confident that as long as he obtained one more drop of the 9 Dragons' blood essence, he would reach perfection. At that time, he would be able to break through to the Lever 3 Martial Royal Realm with the help of the Myriad Spiritual Veins body. By then, with his combat power, he could easily unify the Divine Wilderness continent. Even if he spent some more time, as long as his cultivation broke through to the 4th level of the Martial Royal Realm, it would not be a problem for him to unify the Divine Ruins continent. At that time, he would be able to return to the Di family and become a direct descendant of the Di family. His status would be greatly improved, and with the support of all kinds of resources, not only would his cultivation base improve by leaps and bounds, but even his bloodline status would also be different. Unfortunately, everything was ruined by Lu Ming. He had not been able to obtain Lu Ming's 9 Dragon blood essence, so he had started the war rashly. He wanted to unify the Divine Wilderness continent first, and use the entire Divine Wilderness continent's power to help him cultivate the Myriad Meridian's spiritual body. However, in the end, Lu Ming still ruined everything. Even the 10,000 Meridian spirit body that he had cultivated for 10,000 years was destroyed in a day. He had no hope. It was all Lu Ming. Di's eyes turned red at the thought of Lu Ming. I also sent Di Hongqing and Di Honglei to help you. Where are they now? Do you know how much it costs to teleport from the Yuan continent to a wild island, like the continent group of the Divine Ruins? Di Xian shouted coldly again. In his words, the Divine Ruins continent cluster became a savage island. Di Hongqing, they are dead. Di stuttered. What? Where are the two Emperor's spiritual weapons? Di Xian's eyes widened, and his cold killing intent filled the air. Di's heart trembled. Di Xian was the true direct descendant of the Di family. His status was much higher than his. If he was angered, not only him, even his own branch in the Di family would be in danger. Young Master Xian, please calm down. It's all that Lu Ming's fault. If not for him, I would have been able to unify the continent group of the Divine Ruins before long. Di quickly asked for forgiveness. Lu Ming. Di Xian's eyes widened. Yes, Lu Ming. Di immediately told him about the previous battle and Lu Ming. You're saying that his cultivation hasn't reached the Emperor realm? I didn't think that a mere barbarian Emperor's island would have such a prodigy. This person must have some secrets. Hehe, take him down and I'll study him. Di Xian's eyes were cold. Let's go. Di, you lead the way. We'll go to the Divine Wilderness continent and meet that Lu Ming. Di Xian ordered. Yes. Di nodded repeatedly and led the way. His face was ferocious. Lu Ming was still cultivating in the Nine Dragon Ruins. As the days passed, the spirit god in Lu Ming's dantian gradually calmed down. There was a faint glow, as if it was nurturing something. On a certain day, the spiritual god suddenly trembled, and a chaotic light flashed. It's done. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with ecstasy. At the same time, Lu Ming put away the prison-suppressing steel and the third bloodline. After such a long time, Lu Ming felt that the embryonic form of the chaos domain had finally been condensed successfully. He waved his hand and piles of raw gemstones appeared around Lu Ming. The bloodline of the Nine Dragons appeared. It opened its mouth, and piles of raw gemstones were devoured by the bloodline of the Nine Dragons and began to refine. The energy of the origin stone was constantly transformed into true essence and integrated into the spiritual god. The chaotic light in the spiritual god became more and more obvious. After a few more days, Lu Ming had devoured 300 million raw gemstones. The aura on his body was getting stronger and stronger, and his essential core was getting more and more abundant. At a certain moment, buzz, a circle of light spread out from the spiritual god and grew larger and larger. It covered a radius of 100 meters from Lu Ming's body. Domain. The embryonic form of the domain had finally taken shape. This was the embryonic form of the chaos domain. Right now it was only an embryonic form. There was still a long way to go before it could form a real domain. In the future, Lu Ming would need to continuously comprehend and nurture it. Slowly, the embryonic form of the domain would become bigger and more mature. In the future, when he broke through to the Emperor realm, it would naturally become a complete domain. With a single thought, the embryonic form of the domain shrank and covered the surface of Lu Ming's body. Boom! Lu Ming casually threw a punch and the space collapsed, revealing a dark space cave. What a powerful force! Lu Ming felt that the power of the embryonic chaos domain was much stronger than the pure chaos concept. Is this the power of an autarch? Lu Ming could feel the majestic energy in his body, and a confident smile appeared on his face. After condensing the embryonic form of the domain, Lu Ming had naturally stepped into the supreme level. His current strength was at least several times stronger than before. He was confident that he could easily kill a peak level 2 martial royal realm expert with a king's spiritual weapon, such as Di Hongqing, without the help of his second body. There's less than a month before the alliance establishment ceremony. It's time to go back. At the thought of this, Lu Ming immediately returned. There were no obstacles on the way back. Lu Ming left the Nine Dragons ruins easily. He tore open the space and soon returned to northern plains. At that moment, the Imperial Dragon City was completed. The first thing Lu Ming did when he returned to the northern plains was to give the order to start moving to the Imperial Dragon City. Dragon Emperor City was very magnificent and vast. Many people could live there. Additionally, the cultivation conditions in Dragon Emperor City were very good. Of course, many people wanted to move there. Regarding this, Lu Ming had already discussed with the various emperors and decided on the candidates to move to the Imperial Dragon City. Chapter 1361. 1361. The Alliance Master arrived, and De came to kill. The great relocation had begun. The Lu family that Lu Ming was from, as well as Hua Qi and the others, had all moved to the Imperial Dragon City. Furthermore, they were given the most central piece of land and the best cultivation environment. Dragon Emperor City started to be boisterous. In just half a month, millions of people had been transferred into the Imperial Dragon City through the interterritory teleportation formation. However, as for the huge territory of Dragon Emperor City, millions of people were just a small part of it. More and more people would move in gradually. After moving to the Imperial Dragon City, many people started to be busy preparing for the Alliance establishment ceremony. All the powerful cultivators in the Divine Wilderness continent began to gather at the Imperial Dragon City. On this day, De and the others also stepped into the Divine Wilderness continent. As soon as they entered, they heard that the Imperial Dragon City was going to hold an alliance establishing ceremony in a few days. Hehe, that's good. I'll kill Lu Ming at the so-called alliance establishment ceremony. De Xian sneered. Young Master De Xian, that Lu Ming can control the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. He's very powerful. We have to be careful. De said. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron controlled by Lu Ming was so powerful and shocking that even a Level 3 Martial Royal Realm expert would have to avoid it. Well, let's go to 9 dragons and seal the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron so that Lu Ming can't use it. De Xian said. Everyone tore open the space and headed toward 9 dragons. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The alliance establishment ceremony officially began. At the Imperial Dragon City, at the end of the Divine Dragon Passage, the square paved with white jade was full of experts. Other than Western Desert, all the emperors had arrived. There were hundreds of supreme martial artists, and tens of thousands of sect masters and sect leaders of various forces. They sat down on the seats on both sides of the square. These people were all at the pinnacle of the Divine Wilderness continent. They were all important figures who stood at the very top. Today they were all gathered here. Outside the square, there was an even more spacious place filled with banquet tables. There were at least 1 million people gathered here. Not only that, across the Divine Wilderness mainland, all the factions of varying sizes were celebrating. Today the world was celebrating. The Vice Alliance Master has arrived. A voice came from the sky and spread throughout the entire Imperial Dragon City. Xiao Wan and the old general, one on the left and one on the right, soared into the air and landed on either side of the square. Subordinate greets the 2 Vice Alliance Masters. Everyone present stood up and saluted the 2 Vice Alliance Masters. Rise! Please rise! Xiao Wan and the old general both raised their hands. After that, Xiao Wan and the old general fixated onto the deep place of Dragon Emperor City. The Alliance Master has arrived. The voice from before rang out again. Buzz! Buzz! Whoosh! All the onlookers were looking at the depth of Dragon Emperor City. In the depths of the Imperial Dragon City, a few figures were approaching. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Lu Ming's parents Lu Yintian and Li Ping. Today Lu Ming had changed his clothes. He was wearing a long purple gold robe with a majestic and lifelike 9-clawed true dragon embroidered on it. Her long hair was tied up high, and she was wearing a purple gold crown, golden dragon boots, and a golden jade belt around her waist. An invisible, powerful pressure was being emitted. The 4 of them landed at the top of the square. We pay our respects to the Alliance Master. At the scene inside and outside the square, millions of experts bowed to Lu Ming. The sound waves gathered, and the clouds in the sky were shaken away. No need for formalities, please sit. Lu Ming waved his hand, and his voice could be heard from afar. Thank you, Alliance Master. Millions of people began to take their seats. Today, we're here to celebrate the establishment of the Dragon Alliance. And then, we'll split the territories. Lu Ming spoke. He did not say many words, but many people's hearts were beating faster. The Dragon Alliance had unified the world, including Northern Plains, Eastern Barren, Southern Nether, Central Continent, and the other vast territories. How to infect them, and who to send to guard them were the questions everyone was concerned about. There were huge benefits to be gained from this. Let's start. Lu Ming announced. The first step was for many factions, big and small, to step forward and make a blood oath to form the Dragon Alliance and rule the Divine Wilderness. Ha ha ha. It seems that I came at the right time today. At this moment, a burst of laughter came from the distance. A golden light flashed and a figure appeared in the sky. That is Di. It's Di. Many people shouted, and some people even showed fear on their faces. Back then, Martial Emperor Di had occupied almost half of the Divine Wilderness continent. He was too powerful. Many forces, big and small, had been ruled by Di. Now that Di had appeared, those people naturally panicked. Di, you still dare to come here? That's great. Today, I'll use your blood as a sacrifice to the flag. Xiao Wan bellowed, a burst of demonic qi soaring into the sky. Lu Ming did not say anything. A look of doubt flashed in his eyes. He could clearly see Di's current realm. He was only at the peak of the Level 1 Martial Royal Realm. In the last battle, Di had injured his origin, and his cultivation had dropped by 1 level. With such a cultivation, any one of them could easily kill Di, let alone Lu Ming, Xiao Wan, the old general, or Tu Qian. Why did Di still dare to come here? Di, let the others come out together. Lu Ming said, looking behind Di. Ha ha ha, let this young master show himself, and that will be the time of your death. A burst of laughter was heard as the space cracked open. 10 figures appeared in the sky, looking down at the Imperial Dragon City. Who are these people? I've never seen him before. Many people were discussing. You are Lu Ming. Di Xian's gaze turned to Lu Ming. Not bad, Lu Ming said. Good, very good. I heard that you killed 2 experts of my Di family, Di Hongqing and Di Honglei, and even took away their emperor weapons. Now come over and hand over the emperor weapons. Kneel down and beg me to spare your life. Perhaps I can consider sparing your life. Di Xian put his hands behind his back and looked down at Lu Ming with a haughty look. Impudent! How dare you disrespect the Alliance Master? You should be killed. Let's go. A loud shout came from the square as a tall figure soared into the sky. A vast aura filled the entire place. He was an emperor. He used to be the emperor of a dominant force in the central continent. His name was Martial Emperor Kongtian, and he had surrendered to Lu Ming. Therefore, he had the lowest status among the many emperors in the Dragon Alliance. He had been looking for an opportunity to show off in front of Lu Ming and win his trust. Now that he had such a good opportunity, he had to seize it. Boom! Martial Emperor Kongtian's palm struck towards Di Xian. How dare you disrespect young Master Di Xian Dai? A middle-aged man walked out from behind Di Xian. He held a sword with both hands and slashed. A terrifying sword light instantly appeared above Martial Emperor Kongtian's head. It broke through his attack and defense and slashed down. Martial Emperor Kongtian screamed as he was cut in half. Even his spiritual god exploded and was destroyed. Chapter 1362. 1362 Chapter 1362. So many experts. He had killed an emperor with a single strike. Most of the people present widened their eyes in shock. Peak of the 2nd level Martial Royal Realm. This man is at the peak of the 2nd level Martial Royal Realm. Let's go, a sovereign said solemnly. The middle-aged man behind Di Xian was a peak level 2 Martial Royal Realm expert. Boom, boom, boom. Xiao Wan, the old general, and the others released their auras. All the emperors of the Dragon Alliance gathered their auras and pressed down on Di Xian and the others. Cold killing intent burst out of their bodies. How dare you kill people in Dragon Emperor City? All of you will be killed today. The old general's voice was cold. No matter who you are, you will pay the price today, Xiaowan said. A terrifying blade light flickered on his body. Stay. The price. Ha ha ha. How laughable, ignorant. I'd like to see how you can make me stay today. Di Xian laughed and waved his hand. Boom. 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 Behind Di Xian, auras burst out from the remaining people. Each wisp of qi was like a wisp of smoke. Each wisp of qi was boundless and formed a powerful pressure, which pressed on the Imperial Dragon City and the hearts of the people. The pupils of Xiaowan, the old general, and the others rapidly enlarged, revealing shock and disbelief. The aura of these people was too strong. Including the middle-aged man who had attacked earlier, there were a total of 6 people. All of them were at the peak of the 2nd level martial royal realm. The other 2 had even more terrifying auras. They were much stronger than the peak level 2 martial royal realm. 3rd level martial emperor realm. It was the aura of a level 3 martial emperor. 6 of them were at the peak of the 2nd level martial royal realm, and 2 of them were at the 3rd level. There was also a silver-haired old man, who stood closely behind Di Xian. He did not give off any aura, but the feeling he gave off was even more dangerous. In Dragon Emperor City, everyone's heart sank. What kind of tremendous power was this? Now in the Divine Wilderness continent, the strongest was only at the peak of the 2nd level martial royal realm. Furthermore, there were only a few people who were at the peak of the realm. Not a single one of them was at the 3rd level martial emperor realm. But now, there were 6 peak level 2 martial royal realm experts, and 2 level 3 martial royal realm experts behind Di Xian. How could they fight? Ha ha, Lu Ming, aren't you very arrogant? Today, the experts of my Di family have arrived, and you will all die. Di laughed. His eyes were full of ferocity, and his voice was full of hatred. Today, he wanted Lu Ming to suffer a fate worse than death. Di's voice made many people tremble. Could it be that the Dragon Alliance was going to be destroyed before it was officially established? Lu Ming, how is it? Hurry up and hand over the Emperor's spiritual weapon, and come here to admit your guilt. Maybe you can keep your dog life. Di Xian sneered and continued to look down at Lu Ming, as if he was certain that he would win. Emperor spiritual weapons were the spiritual weapons that only peak Emperor experts could unleash their strongest power. Even to Di Xian, they were precious. Those 2 Emperor spiritual weapons were one of the few he had. Out of the 9 experts he had brought, only 1 or 2 of them had an Emperor spiritual weapon. Ming Er, Lu Yantian, and Li Ping looked at Lu Ming with worry. Father, mother, don't worry. It'll be fine. Lu Ming smiled at Lu Yantian and Li Ping. His smile was filled with confidence. For some reason, Lu Yantian and Li Ping felt at ease when they saw Lu Ming's smile. Then, Lu Ming ignored Di Xian and looked at De. De, you escaped last time. You should have hidden well. That way, you might have been able to survive. But you came here to die. You brought this on yourself. Lu Ming spoke slowly, causing many people to be stunned. In such a situation, Lu Ming was still thinking about killing De. He couldn't even protect himself. Only the eyes of a few people, such as Xiao Wan, Xia Zhiyang, and Yan Kuangtu lit up. They knew Lu Ming very well. Lu Ming would not do anything without a reason. De himself was also stunned. Lu Ming still wanted to kill him under such circumstances? Where did Lu Ming's confidence come from? Di Xian's face darkened. Lu Ming actually dared to ignore him. Bang! Bang! Di Xian stepped forward step by step, his body releasing a powerful aura. Supreme Martial Artist. Di Xian's cultivation base was at the Supreme Being realm. This shocked many people in Dragon Emperor City. Because Di Xian didn't look very old. He was definitely not more than 30 years old. He might even only be in his early 20s. To reach the supreme level in his early 20s was too shocking. This had never happened before in the history of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming, I've heard that you're very powerful. I'd like to experience it today. Dician spoke, his aura locked onto Lu Ming. You want to challenge me? The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. Behind Dician, Di's eyes flickered, but he did not speak. He knew that some of the supreme talents in the Emperor family had shocking combat strength, and were extremely terrifying. They were far from what some of the so-called supreme talents in the continent of the Divine Ruins could compare to. Although Lu Ming was strong, he might be able to fight Dician. Even if he could not fight Dician, Lu Ming would offend Dician even more, and it would be beneficial to him. Not bad. Do you dare to accept the challenge? Dician said. Since you're looking for a beating, of course I'll fulfill your wish. Lu Ming smiled and stepped forward, facing Dician from a distance. Lu Ming, I heard that you're a rare genius in the Divine Wilderness continent. But I'll let you know that the so-called geniuses of a desolate island like yours are just a joke. Dician sneered. His body started to shine like wisps of sword chi. Buzz! A combat sword appeared in Dician's hand. He strode toward Lu Ming and shouted, Kill! Whoosh! A beam of sword chi split the sky and slashed at Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming threw a punch and activated the prison-suppressing heavenly technique. The fist force and the sword chi collided. The space was twisted into pieces. Lu Ming's body trembled, and he actually took 3 steps back. Dician, on the other hand, stood still in the air. Hiss hiss hiss. The Imperial Dragon City was filled with gasps. Lu Ming was forced to retreat by a single sword. In the Battle of the Holy City, everyone still remembered Lu Ming's shocking combat strength. Even a peak second-level martial emperor, with an emperor's spiritual weapon, was killed by Lu Ming. Now, Lu Ming was forced to retreat by a single sword. Moreover, the opponent was a young man who was not even 30 years old. This was shocking. His body, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He was secretly shocked. Although he had not used his full strength, and had only revealed his cultivation at the great circle of the spiritual god realm, he had still unleashed 9 streams of dragon power, and executed the prison-suppressing heaven technique. Even an ordinary emperor would not be a match for him. However, his opponent was only a supreme being, and the battle prowess he had unleashed was astonishing. What surprised Lu Ming the most was the body of the other party. It was a spirit body. That's right, the other party was only a supreme martial artist, but he had a spiritual body. This was inconceivable. Lu Ming could sense very clearly that the other party's spirit body was not a pure spirit body like his. It was a real spirit body with special attributes. Chapter 1363. 1363 Chapter 1363 Innate Spirit Body. But didn't a true spirit body have to step into the Emperor realm before it could be condensed? Then, that's a spirit body? That's right, it's really a spirit body, a type of sword spirit body. How is that possible? How can a supreme martial artist possess a spirit body? The Emperor of the Dragon Alliance was in an uproar. Even existences like Xiao Wan and the old general, who had lived for many years, were shocked. They could naturally feel the power of Dician's spirit body. Innate spirit body, it's an innate spirit body. Haha, these country bumpkins don't know the power of an innate spirit body. An innate spirit body is an innate spirit body. Behind him, Di's eyes were filled with shock, but at the same time, he laughed in his heart. He was born in the Yuan continent, so his vision was naturally different. He knew that some people were blessed by the heavens, and were born with a spirit body. This was called an innate spirit body. Such people were innately unrivaled geniuses. Needless to say, their bloodline would definitely be able to awaken to the 9th level of the divine level. At the same time, their bloodline and spirit body would definitely be in perfect harmony. This kind of person, whether it was bloodline martial techniques, comprehension of intent, or other martial techniques, was blessed by the heavens and had an advantage over others. Therefore, his combat strength was also terrifyingly strong. Dician was such a person. If you can block one of my moves, come again. Die! Dician shouted. On the surface of his body, wisps of sword-like radiance circulated. He slashed his combat sword, and the sword chi was shocking as it slashed toward Lu Ming. Chaos. Lu Ming took a step forward and cast the chaos will. At the same time, his third bloodline appeared and he threw another punch. The same prison-suppressing heaven technique, when combined with the chaos intent, had its power increase explosively. Boom! This time, Lu Ming did not move an inch. On the other hand, Di Xian retreated backward. Damn it, kill! Di Xian flew into a rage after being pushed back. He raised his aura to the maximum and covered his entire body with his territory. He charged at Lu Ming and slashed with his sword. The roars of hundreds of beasts could be heard. Di Xian's martial technique wasn't simple. It seemed to push the power of the domain to its limit. Domain martial technique. A thought flashed across Lu Ming's mind. A domain martial skill was the same as a concept martial skill. Martial techniques of creation could exert the power of creation to the extreme, while martial techniques of domain could exert the power of domain to the extreme. Di Xian's domain martial skill was even more powerful, and his sword light seemed to be able to destroy everything. Lu Ming infused the chaos concept into his body and engaged in an intense battle with his opponent. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves. To be honest, Di Xian was very powerful. He was the strongest member of the younger generation that Lu Ming had met so far. His combat strength was comparable to Lu Ming's combat strength before he broke through to the Supreme Being realm. It was equivalent to the peak of the second-level martial royal realm. He was only a supreme martial artist, but his battle prowess was already so shocking that it was beyond imagination. In a battle of the same level, he was even stronger than Long Chun. One must know that the bloodline awakened by Long Chun was one of the top 10 war beasts, the Archean dragonesque elephant. However, now that Lu Ming had broken through to the Supreme Being realm, he naturally did not take him seriously. Damn it! How could there be such a powerful person on a mere savage island? The more they fought, the more shocked Di Xian was. This person must have a secret. If I can obtain his secret, I will definitely become stronger. I might even be able to compete with those monstrous geniuses in the clan. Thinking of this, Di Xian's heart started to burn. Buzz! His glabella glowed and a golden combat sword flew out, slashing at Lu Ming. Clang! Lu Ming's punch landed on the combat sword, and he could not help but retreat. An emperor spiritual weapon. Lu Ming's eyes flickered, but he was not surprised. The other party was so talented and had an extraordinary background. It was normal for him to have an emperor spiritual weapon. Die! Di Xian shouted and charged at Lu Ming. Is this all you've got? Then let's end this. Chaos concept. Lu Ming shouted. The chaos concept that lingered around his body suddenly changed. At first it shrank rapidly and then bloomed. What bloomed out was no longer intent, but a domain, the embryonic form of the chaos domain. At the same time, the aura on Lu Ming's body rose rapidly. Supreme Martial Artist. The Alliance Master has broken through to the Supreme Martial Artist realm. Xiao Wan and the others were overjoyed. Boom! Lu Ming's fist was wrapped in the early stage of the Chaos realm. He punched Di Xian's Emperor spiritual weapon sword. Clang! The sword shook violently. Di Xian's expression changed. His body shook, and he was sent flying like a cannonball. Blood spurted out of his mouth. When Lu Ming revealed his true abilities, he was crushed and was severely injured by a single punch. Kill! Lu Ming moved and caught up with Di Xian. He threw a punch at Di Xian's heart. This punch was enough to penetrate Di Xian's heart. However, just as Lu Ming's punch was about to hit Di Xian's heart, Di Xian's body suddenly emitted a golden light, and a golden armor appeared. Thump! Lu Ming's fist landed on the armor. The armor shook violently, but it was not broken. It blocked most of Lu Ming's fist force. However, Lu Ming's punch was too powerful. Although the armor had blocked most of the force, a small part of the force from the punch still hit Di Xian's body. Di Xian screamed in pain. His chest caved in and blood spurted out of his mouth. It's a defensive Emperor spiritual weapon. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. This Emperor Xian was really rich. It even had a defensive emperor spiritual weapon. The ones that Lu Ming had encountered in the past were all offensive emperor spiritual weapons. In comparison, defensive emperor spiritual weapons were more precious than offensive ones. It was a defensive emperor spiritual weapon that could save one's life at critical moments. Just like just now, if Di Xian did not have this armor, he would have been killed by Lu Ming with one punch. How dare you hurt the young master? Kill him. Di Xian was severely injured. The subordinates he had brought with him all roared in anger and launched fierce attacks at Lu Ming. 6 peak second-level martial emperors and 2 third-level martial emperors attacked at the same time. The power was shocking. Not good. The expressions of Xiao Wan, Xia Zhuyang, and the others changed drastically. Kill. A combat sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. It was the Dragon Vein Sword, the Emperor's spiritual weapon that he had snatched from the Flood Dragon Sovereign when he was fighting for the pure spirit body cultivation technique in the ancient underwater city. Now that Lu Ming had broken through to the martial emperor realm and mastered the embryonic form of his territory, he could already activate the power of an emperor spiritual weapon. Moreover, Lu Ming's early stage domain was the early stage of the chaos domain. The chaos domain could transform into other domains at will. In other words, no matter what type of king spiritual weapon it was, except for a few types such as space-time, Lu Ming could use it. Whoosh! The combat sword slashed across, and a peak lever 2 martial royal realm expert was cut in half at the waist, dying on the spot. Clang! Then, he moved his sword horizontally and exchanged a blow with a lever 3 martial royal realm expert, forcing him to retreat. Let's attack. Buzz! Xiao Wan controlled an emperor spiritual weapon and a demonic blade to attack the 2 peak lever 2 martial royal realm martial artists. At the same time, the old general and Tu Qian also made their moves. Both of them controlled their king spiritual weapons and enveloped the remaining 2 peak lever 2 martial royal realm martial artists. None of the 6 peak second level martial royal realm experts under Di Xian had an emperor spiritual weapon, so Xiao Wan and the other 2 were enough to deal with them. Chapter 1364. 1364 Killing a lever 3 martial emperor. Kill them all. In the distance, Di Xian let out an angry roar. It was too dangerous just now. Di Xian felt like he had just walked past the god of death. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't expect that he would almost be killed by someone of the same generation on a remote island. He was furious and his killing intent was cold. The silver-haired old man appeared behind Di Xian, but he did not attack. Let's see who kills who. Xiao Wan and the other 2 blocked the 5 peak lever 2 martial royal realm experts, while Lu Ming charged at the 2 lever 3 martial royal realm experts. Buzz! Buzz! The sound of swords resonated in the sky. 2 third-level martial royal realm martial artists each took out a golden combat sword. They were both king spiritual weapons. How powerful was an emperor spiritual weapon that was controlled by a lever 3 martial royal realm expert? However, Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He slashed down with the dragon pattern sword, which was wrapped in the early stage of the chaos domain. Clang! The 2 swords clashed, forming rings of sword ripples that spread out. The lever 3 martial royal realm expert was no match for Lu Ming. His body trembled and he retreated. How is that possible? Not far away, Di Xian, and the silver-haired old man all narrowed their eyes in disbelief. Lu Ming's combat strength could actually suppress a lever 3 martial royal realm expert. Below, the experts of the Dragon Alliance were extremely excited. Some people clenched their fists tightly. Lu Ming was too powerful. He had not even broken through to the martial emperor realm, but he could already suppress a 3rd-level martial emperor. This was a 3rd-level martial royal realm. There was no one like him in the divine wilderness continent. 30,000 years ago, Xiao Wan had only reached the 3rd level of the martial royal realm at his peak. Such an expert was suppressed by Lu Ming. Alliance Master. This was the Alliance Master of their Dragon Alliance. If it was during the Battle of the Holy City, Lu Ming would not be a match for a third-level martial royal realm expert. Moreover, the other party had an emperor's spiritual weapon. However, now that Lu Ming had broken through to the supreme level, his combat strength had increased tremendously. He was no longer the same as he was during the Battle of the Holy City. Whoosh! At this moment, the other third-level martial monarch powerhouse charged at Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming did not seem to see it. He held the dragon vein sword and charged towards the person he had repelled. Just as the sword of the person behind was approaching Lu Ming at high speed, a figure stepped out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows. It was Lu Ming's clone. Whoosh! The second body put his fingers together like a sword and slashed out. A sword light slashed out and blocked the other party's combat sword. During this period of time, Lu Ming's main body had been cultivating. Naturally, his secondary body had not been idle. The second body focused on cultivation and had no other thoughts, so his improvement speed was even faster. During the Battle of the Holy City, the second body had only condensed one golden spirit lamp, but during this time, the second body had already condensed a second golden spirit lamp, and his combat power had greatly increased. Whoosh! 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 Next, 5 phoenix feather flying swords flew out from between his brows and attacked the other party. The other party was shocked and could only wave his sword to block. Lu Ming took the lead and continued to attack his opponent. The embryonic form of the chaos domain wrapped around the dragon pattern sword. Lu Ming's every sword attack was unimaginably powerful. Clang! The other party was completely passive and could only wave his sword to block. The two swords clashed for the second time. The other party's body trembled continuously, and his face turned pale as he was forced to retreat. Buzz! Whoosh! Lu Ming launched a storm-like attack, the dragon vein sword slashing out continuously. Lu Ming had the upper hand. Suddenly dash! 4 sealing gates appeared in the sky. They shone with bright light and sealed the other party. At that moment, the other party was frozen. Even though it was only for a moment, it was enough. Prison suppressing steel. Lu Ming cast blood fusion and transformed into the prison suppressing steel. Boom! The prison suppressing steel pressed down on the other party. Lu Ming had broken through to the Supreme Being realm and comprehended the embryonic form of the Chaos realm. He had transformed into the prison suppressing steel. How powerful was he? Although the other party had broken open the ceiling door at the critical moment and blocked it with his combat sword, his body still trembled. His body made crackling sounds and almost exploded. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Buzz! Under the control of Lu Ming's spiritual sense, the dragon vein sword was as fast as lightning and slashed across. The other party had just been severely injured by the prison suppressing steel that Lu Ming had transformed into. How could he dodge? The dragon vein sword slashed down, and a head flew high into the air. The dragon vein sword twisted again, and the opponent's spiritual god was also turned into ashes. A level 3 martial royal realm expert had died. On the other side, the battle of the second body was also coming to an end. The second body lit up another golden spirit lamp, and his combat power was also greatly improved compared to the battle of the Holy City. At this time, he took out the all-formation picture and trapped the enemy. Whoosh! 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 5 phoenix feather flying swords shot out and pierced 5 holes in the opponent's body, killing the opponent in one fell swoop. The 2 level 3 martial royal realm experts were killed just like that. In the Imperial Dragon City, the experts of the Dragon Alliance were both shocked and overjoyed. As for De Xian and the others, they looked incredulous. Kill! Kill! Lu Ming's main body and secondary body charged at De Xian at the same time. Not good. Young master, quickly retreat. The expression of the Esilavira-haired old man beside De Xian changed. A golden combat sword appeared in his hand. He took a step forward and arrived in front of De Xian. The dazzling sword chi slashed at Lu Ming. Without a doubt, the Esilavira-haired elder's sword was also an emperor's spiritual weapon. At the same time, the Silavira-haired elder's cultivation was even more shocking. He had reached the peak of the Level 3 martial royal realm. However, the Silavira-haired elder was still no match for the joint attack of Lu Ming's main body and second body. After exchanging a few moves, the Silavira-haired elder retreated continuously. "Let's go retreat." Dician panicked. Lu Ming's strength was beyond his imagination. He was much stronger than what De had said. He could not even defeat a Level 3 martial royal realm expert. He shouted and turned to run. Clang! Boom! Lu Ming's main body joined forces, and once again exchanged a blow with the Silavira-haired elder, forcing him to retreat dozens of miles. Buzz! The second body charged towards Dician. Not good. The Silavira-haired old man's expression changed drastically. He could not care less about the battle. He became one with his sword and turned into a sword light, appearing in front of Dician in an instant. In an instant, he slashed out 108 sword lights in all directions. The mental energy fire between his eyebrows jumped. On the million formation illustration, countless formations shown. All kinds of formations, all kinds of attacks, all kinds of trapping formations poured toward the Silavira-haired old man and Dician. At the same time, 5 phoenix feather flying swords took the time to assassinate. Lu Ming's main body had also arrived. The Silavira-haired old man tried his best to protect Dician, but the situation was dangerous. "Young master, use the space-piercing shuttle." The Silavira-haired old man roared. "Space-piercing shuttle, yes, yes, yes." Dician was so scared that he didn't know what to do. His face was pale, and his body was trembling. After the Silavira-haired old man's reminder, he nodded repeatedly. The space between his brows lit up, and a spirit weapon with 2 sharp ends and a thicker center flew out. As soon as the spiritual weapon appeared, it expanded rapidly, and a layer of light enveloped Dician and the Silavira-haired old man. "Let's go." The Silavira-haired old man activated his Zhen Yuan, and the space-breaking shuttle shone. With a shake, it directly shattered the void and disappeared. He couldn't care about the others. Chapter 1365. 1365 Chapter 1365 Killing De. "You want to leave?" Boom! The prison-suppressing steel pressed down on the void, and the space within 1,000 miles exploded. However, the space-breaking shuttle had disappeared. "It's another Emperor spiritual weapon, and it's the escape type." Lu Ming frowned, and felt that it was a pity. The other party was too rich, and had all kinds of Emperor spiritual weapons. First there were offensive types, then there were defensive types, and now, there were even escape types. Under the control of the Silavira-haired old man, the space-breaking shuttle was so fast that it disappeared in an instant. It was much faster than tearing the void. Dician had escaped. Lu Ming turned his gaze to other directions. "De, where are you going?" Lu Ming transformed back into his human form, a cold smile on his lips. At this time, De was desperately fleeing. De's face was full of fear and disbelief. It was only a difference of a few months, but Lu Ming's combat strength had once again increased by a large margin. Without the help of the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, he was able to kill a Level 3 martial royal realm expert. How is that possible? How is that possible? De roared in his heart, extremely unwilling, and fled for his life at the same time. Buzz! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. Lu Ming! De's pupils contracted sharply. It was Lu Ming's clone that appeared in front of De. De, you can't burn your spirit body this time. Do you think you can still escape? Lu Ming's voice came from behind De. Behind him was the main body. Kill! De was very decisive and attacked directly. However, his cultivation had regressed to the peak of the Level 1 martial royal realm, and his myriad spiritual meridian's body had been destroyed. His combat strength was far inferior to Lu Ming's. He waved his hand, and the all-array diagram appeared, trapping De in it. De, I'll kill you later. Lu Ming sneered. He took a step forward, and charged toward the battlefield where Xiao Wan and the others were. The 5-peak lever 2 martial royal realm experts were almost scared out of their wits. They wanted to escape, but Xiao Wan and the others kept them busy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lu Ming held the dragon vein sword and slashed 5 times, one at a time. 5-peak lever 2 martial royal realm experts were killed in the air. Everyone in the Imperial Dragon City was stunned as they looked at Lu Ming in a daze. The 5-peak lever 2 martial royal realm experts killed 5 people with 5 slashes. This visual effect and impact were too strong. In the Divine Wilderness continent, a peak 2nd level martial royal realm expert would be one of the strongest. But in Lu Ming's hands, he was as weak as a chicken. The Alliance Master is invincible. Alliance Master is unparalleled. All of a sudden, a deafening roar burst out in the Imperial Dragon City. Countless people were so excited that their faces turned red, and they roared madly. At this moment, Lu Ming's figure was irreplaceable in their hearts. He was indomitable and unrivaled. The whistling sound came wave after wave. Lu Ming's prestige had reached its peak. Lu Ming raised his hand and pressed down on the air. The Imperial Dragon City quieted down at once. Buzz! Lu Ming moved his body and appeared in front of De. Lu Ming, do you know what kind of people we are? Do you know who Di Xiangongzi is? I'm telling you, we are from the Yuan continent, the Di family, one of the major clans of the Yuan continent. If you dare to kill a member of the Di family, you are dead meat. Young Master Di Xian will not let you off. The entire Divine Wilderness continent will be buried with you. Di roared. A big sect in the Yuanlu continent? The Di family? Lu Ming frowned. He had long guessed that Di Xian and the others had extraordinary origins. He did not expect them to be a big force in the Yuan continent. The pupils of Xiao Wan, the old general, and the others contracted, and they gasped. A big sect in Yuanlu. Di actually came from Yuanlu. That was the Yuan continent. It was not something the Divine Wilderness continent or the Divine Ruins could compare to. Legend had it that in the Yuan continent, experts were as common as clouds and as common as rain. There were countless existences that had surpassed the martial emperor realm. An expert of that level could destroy the Divine Wilderness continent with a snap of his fingers. Everyone who had heard of the rumors in the Yuan continent was worried. Seeing this, De sneered and said, Lu Ming, you'd better let me go. Maybe I can help you. Ha ha ha, what a joke. Before De could finish his sentence, Lu Ming laughed and interrupted him. De, you used to be a lord of a region. Now in order to survive, you are using this to scare me. It's really pitiful and sad. Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, you. De was furious. De, I'm telling you, you must die today. And that Di Xian, if he stops here it's fine. But if he is stubborn, the emperor family of Yuanlu will be destroyed together. Lu Ming shouted, his voice rumbling throughout the Imperial Dragon City. At most, the Yuanlu emperor family would be wiped out. What kind of heroic spirit was this? How confident was he? De was stunned, and then laughed wildly. Lu Ming, you're the one who wants to destroy the Di family. You're so short-sighted. You're just a frog at the bottom of a well. Lu Ming, do you know how many experts there are in the Yuan continent? Do you know how powerful the Di family is? How dare you claim that you've annihilated the Di family? If your words were to spread to Yuan continent, I don't know how many people would laugh their teeth off. De laughed, as if he did not care about life and death. So what if I'm strong? Back then, I came from a small country in the mysterious region of the Eastern Barren Territory. At that time, the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was also a giant, and you De were also high and mighty. But how are you now? Lu Ming said calmly, his eyes full of confidence. De, shut up. Roar. The bloodline of the 9 dragons emerged above Lu Ming's head. De, haven't you always wanted the 9 dragon blood essence? Today, I'll let you die under the bloodline of the 9 dragons. With that, the 9 dragon bloodline opened its mouth, and the devouring power enveloped De. Ever since his 9-dragon bloodline had fused with the 9 drops of 9-dragon blood essence, his devouring power had been enhanced many times. It was shockingly powerful. Enveloped by the devouring power, Di's life essence, heart blood, and essence blood were quickly lost and devoured by the 9 dragons. De, even though he was the overlord of a generation and had a tough mind, he was ready to be killed. But in the face of such a situation, he still screamed in horror and struggled with all his might. However, in the million formation illustration, it was futile to struggle. A moment later, De's life essence was completely devoured, and he turned into a dry corpse. In the Imperial Dragon City, countless people were looking at the sky with complicated expressions. De was also considered an overlord of his generation. He had planned for 10,000 years, and had almost unified the divine wilderness continent. If not for the appearance of an unprecedented genius like Lu Ming, De would have succeeded and unified the divine wilderness. De was known as a hero of his generation. However, in the end he died at the hands of Lu Ming. He had completely fallen. Let the alliance establishment ceremony continue. Lu Ming turned around, stepped down, and flew down the Imperial Dragon City. His voice spread throughout the city. The Alliance Master is invincible. Their shouts reverberated through the clouds. After this battle, Lu Ming's prestige had reached its peak. As for Yuan Lu, only a small number of people knew about it. Most people did not even have the concept of Yuan Lu. Chapter 1366. 1366 Chapter 1366, Heading to Western Desert. Following that, the Alliance establishment ceremony proceeded smoothly. The experts took an oath to form an alliance, and then divided the territories. After everything was over, it was time for the grand banquet. The banquet went on for a full day and night before the crowd slowly dispersed. In the northern part of the divine wilderness continent, above a boundless sea, space cracked open and a space-piercing shuttle appeared. Buzz! The space-breaking shuttle trembled and shrank, revealing 2 figures. They were Di Xian and the Esilavira-haired old man. The moment the Esilavira-haired old man appeared, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The battle with Lu Ming and the overnight journey had caused the Esilavira-haired elder to be severely injured. But Di Xian didn't even look at the Esilavira-haired old man. His eyes were cold and his face was ferocious. He looked to the south and roared, "That damned bastard. I'm going to tear that Lu Ming into 1,000 pieces." It was fine if he was in the Yuan continent, but in the divine wilderness continent, on this savage island, he actually suffered such a huge loss. Not only did he lose several emperor spiritual weapons, he even fled in defeat. This was a huge humiliation. He hated Lu Ming to the core. As for his dead subordinates, Di Xian didn't care at all. In his eyes, those people were just dispensable ants. In the Di family, such ants were too many to count. The Esilavira-haired old man's eyes revealed a trace of sadness, but it disappeared in a flash. "Young master, what should we do now?" the Esilavira-haired old man asked. "What else can we do? Of course, we're going back to the Yuan continent." Di Xian gritted his teeth. "Go back to the Yuan continent and find experts to take revenge?" The Esilavira-haired old man asked carefully. "Idiot! Do you know how much it costs to transport some people from the Yuan continent to this remote and desolate island? The clan has already made an exception for me to teleport once. When I return this time, the clan will definitely not let me teleport again in a short period of time. However, it won't be long. When I return and break through to the martial emperor realm, I will gain a certain status in the clan and come back again. 10 years, at most 10 years, I will destroy the entire divine wilderness continent with that kid. You're courting death." Di Xian roared ferociously. After a long while, he finally calmed down and flew toward White Feather Continent with the Esilavira-haired elder. Lu Ming's life had completely calmed down. Every day, other than his own cultivation, he would be teaching his 2 disciples. At times, he would also teach his parents, Hua Qi, and the others. As for his second body, other than cultivating, He would occasionally open a forum and preach. He had refined his second body, obtained a saint's inheritance, and broken through to the emperor level. His knowledge of the Tao of refinement was the best in the divine wilderness. Therefore, every time the second clone of inscription opened a forum to preach, people who cultivated the Tao of inscription would swarm over. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others did not fall behind even once. There were even emperors who went to listen. Lu Ming did not keep anything to himself. He shared his cultivation experience with her. At the same time, Dragon Emperor City was also growing more and more prosperous. The entire Divine Wilderness continent, the entire Dragon Alliance, was full of life. They were developing and growing. Although it could be said that the Divine Wilderness continent had the least emperors in history. Other than Western Desert, there were also a few people from Xie clan. The emperor of the entire Dragon Alliance was not even 20. However, given the current situation, it wouldn't take too long for the number of emperors to slowly increase. Now that the Dragon Alliance had unified the world, they had access to all kinds of resources and opened all kinds of cultivation holy lands to the public. The treatment that the top talents could enjoy was many times better than before. In the past, the various overlord forces had their own territories, and their resources were extremely limited. But now he could choose any resources he wanted. The cultivation speed of the young Heaven's Pride experts had increased greatly. The various emperors also shared their cultivation experiences with each other. He believed that this would increase his chances of breaking through to the emperor realm in the future. A month after the establishment of the alliance, Yin Kuangtu successfully broke through and became an emperor. The Dragon Alliance now had another emperor. 2 months after the establishment of the alliance, Xiao Wan had finally taken a step forward with Lu Ming's help. His origin had been greatly restored, and his cultivation had finally recovered to the 3rd level of the martial royal realm. He had become the most powerful person in the Dragon Alliance after Lu Ming. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since the founding ceremony. In the past 3 months, Lu Ming's cultivation level had steadily increased. The early stage of the domain was growing day by day. All sorts of martial arts techniques were also constantly improving. What was worth mentioning was that Lu Ming had fused 9 drops of 9 dragons' blood essence and absorbed the cultivation experience of the 9 dragons. He had finally cultivated the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps to the 9th step and achieved perfection. As for the pure spirit body, he had also cultivated it to 70%. Xian Yinqing was also cultivating hard. He was improving quickly and was only 1 step away from the Supreme Being level. However, Dandan and Bubbles were still in a deep sleep and had yet to wake up. At this time, there was less than a year left before the 2-year agreement to head to Dragon God Valley. What happened to Long Chun and the others back then? Why did Long Chun disappear and only Dark Child, the Heartless Monk, and the other 2 returned? Now that Dark Child is dead, only the Heartless Monk and Moonless know. It seems that it's time to make a trip to the Western Desert. In the Alliance Master's residence in the Imperial Dragon City, Lu Ming was drinking tea in a pavilion in the courtyard, his thoughts flying. He decided to find out where Long Chun was. Long Chun was a good person and could be considered a friend of Lu Ming's. Back in the Divine Ruins continent, Lu Ming was also the one who implicated him. If Long Chun were to be harmed because of Lu Ming would not be at ease. At the thought of this, Lu Ming took a step forward and disappeared. The Western Desert had always been the domain of the Buddhist sect. Almost everyone in Western Desert believed in Buddha. Furthermore, the Western Desert had always been mysterious. It had never participated in the Divine Wilderness continent's conflicts and stayed out of it. But no one dared to underestimate Western Desert. There was once an emperor of an overlord force that led an army to attack Western Desert, but in the end, he never returned, not causing any commotion. Even this time, when the Divine Wilderness continent entered a rare state of chaos, Western Desert remained uninvolved. Buzz! At the Western Desert border, Lu Ming's figure appeared. Looking into the distance, Lu Ming's figure was like a rainbow as he flew towards the depths of the Western Desert. In the vast territory of Western Desert, there were countless temples and ancient temples. Lu Ming's target this time was the most ancient and oldest temple in the Western Desert, the Bodhi Temple. It was said that the unscrupulous monk and the moonless female bodhisattva were both from the Bodhi Temple and were cultivating in seclusion in the temple. Lu Ming's speed was so fast that it did not take long for him to cross more than half of the Western Desert. So many experts. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Along the way, Lu Ming discovered many powerful auras. Lu Ming discovered no less than 20 Supreme Being auras. He even discovered 2 Emperor auras. Lu Ming was flying in a straight line, and he had already discovered so many experts. It was unbelievable. Sometimes, there would be a supreme martial artist in a small, dilapidated temple. It was truly astonishing. It was said that Western Desert was second only to Central Continent in the 5 territories. It seemed that the rumors were true. Not long after, a temple on a majestic mountain appeared before Lu Ming's eyes. They had arrived at the Bodhi Temple. Chapter 1367. 1367 Long Chen's whereabouts. As soon as Lu Ming arrived, a Buddhist light appeared in front of him. A burly monk who was 3 meters tall appeared in front of him. Halt, this is the holy land of Buddhism. The burly monk was like a Buddhist Vajra. He stretched out his hand and blocked Lu Ming. Master, I'm Lu Ming. I would like to pay a visit to your sect's heartless master and the moonless female bodhisattva. Lu Ming cupped his fists and said politely, Lu Ming, you're the leader of the Dragon Alliance? The burly monk's pupils shrank, and a look of surprise flashed through his eyes. I'm currently under you, Lu Ming said. So it's Alliance Master Lu. But recently, Wu Liang and Wu Yu are both in closed-door cultivation. I'm afraid it's not convenient to meet them. The tall and sturdy monk said. Still in seclusion? Lu Ming frowned. Master, can you pass on the message? Lu Ming only wants to ask a few questions. I'll leave after I'm done. Alliance Master Lu. I've said that Wu Liang and Wu Yu are in seclusion. I'm afraid it's difficult for them to meet. The burly monk was very domineering. Lu Ming's face darkened slightly. It was just a meeting. Furthermore, with Lu Ming's current status, he could be said to be the overlord of the divine wilderness. However, the other party still wanted to stop him. There must be something fishy behind this. Lu Ming was considering whether he should force his way in. Although the burly monk was at the first-level martial emperor realm, he could not stop Lu Ming. Kong Jian, let Alliance Master Lu in. At this moment, an old voice came from Bodhi Temple. Then, Buddhist light filled the air, and a kind-looking old monk appeared beside the burly monk. A halo of Buddhist light appeared above the old monk's head. The powerful aura made Lu Ming's pupils contract. Third-level martial emperor realm. This old monk's cultivation was at the 3rd level of the martial royal realm. Lu Ming's heart was in turmoil. In the divine wilderness continent, there were still 3rd-level martial royal realm experts other than Ciel Wan. The Western Desert really shocked Lu Ming. If such an expert were to participate in the fight for hegemony in the divine wilderness continent, what would Di have to do? Kong Jin greets Abbot Kong Hai. The tall and sturdy monk greeted the old monk. It turned out that this person was the abbot of Bodhi Temple. Amitabha, I am Kong Hai. Greetings, Alliance Master Lu. Master Kong Hai said, paying his respects to Buddha. You're welcome, Master. Lu Ming greets you. Lu Ming returned the greeting. Alliance Master Lu, please come in. I already knew that Alliance Master Lu would come this morning. I have already informed Wu Liang and Wu Yu to come out and see you. Master Kong Hai said. Oh. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. Without saying anything, he, Kong Hai, and Kong Jian entered Bodhi Temple. They sat down in an elegant courtyard and waited. I have no hair. Lu Ming, long time no see. I knew you wouldn't die. Not long after, he heard a nondescript Buddhist chant. The monk and the moonless female bodhisattva walked over. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. At this moment, Kong Hai and Kong Jian had left. leaving Lu Ming and the rest to chat. Heartless, what happened in the Divine Ruins continent back then? The people from the South God Palace came to the Divine Wilderness continent and said that I was killed by a Heaven's Pride expert of the deity sect because I offended him. Why didn't any of you say anything? Lu Ming went straight to the point and asked the question in his heart. Hey, Lu Ming, you can't blame me. The unscrupulous monk cried out in injustice. Back then, the ones who sent us back were experts from the great family, the Wang family of the South God Palace. When the Wang family experts arrived in the Divine Wilderness continent, they ordered us not to speak nonsense. As you know, the South God Palace is extremely powerful. They even have a level 4 martial royal realm expert. I don't dare to disobey them. Moreover, that old monk Kong Hai is also a timid person, so he asked us to cultivate in seclusion and not pay attention to the outside world. The unscrupulous monk had an exaggerated expression on his face. This guy called Abbot Kong Hai is old monk Kong Hai. What a weirdo. Amit Ba. On the side, the moonless female bodhisattva chanted the name of Buddha and pretended not to hear it. Also, Lu Ming, were you being hunted down in the South God Palace? At that time, I really thought you were dead. The monk continued. Oh, I can't be bothered to pursue this matter. But what about Long Chen? Didn't he come back with you? Where is he? Lu Ming asked. Sai Long Chen is probably dead too. He was taken away by the Wang family. The monk sighed. The Wang clan. Do you know why they took Long Chen away? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. I don't know. The monk shook his head. Lu Ming's brows were tightly knitted together. Could it be that he had offended the Wang family's prodigy, Wang Zhen, and that was why the Wang family had taken their anger out on Long Chen? All right, Lu Ming. That's all I know. You came at the right time. If you were a few days later, you wouldn't have seen us. The monk said. Oh, you're leaving? Lu Ming asked curiously. That's right. In a few days, Moonless and I will go to the Yuan continent and join a Buddhist sect there. Haha, I'm indeed the darling of the heavens, the reincarnation of a Buddhist emperor. Lu Ming, I'll catch up with you soon. The unscrupulous monk laughed triumphantly. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. It seemed that the waters of the western desert ran deep. They could actually contact the Buddhist sects in the Yuanlu. Then we'll meet in the Yuan continent. Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming took his leave. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Over the past few days, Lu Ming had received news that an unknown expert had appeared on the shores of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming frowned and ordered the guards to be on high alert. On the shore of the Divine Wilderness continent's eastern wilderness, a figure suddenly appeared. A terrifying aura emanated from his body, like the aura of an emperor. We've finally arrived at the Divine Wilderness continent. That Lu Ming should be there. This figure was wearing a green robe and had narrow and sharp eyes. At this moment, there was a hint of greed in his eyes. With a shake of his body, he flew into the depths of the East continent. Soon he arrived outside Nine Dragons. What a majestic city. There's an emperor here. I can ask around about Lu Ming's whereabouts. The green-robed man sneered and rushed into Nine Dragons. He appeared in the depths of Nine Dragons, exuding a vast aura that pressed down on Nine Dragons. What's going on? It's so strong. Emperor, that's the emperor. Which emperor from the Dragon Alliance has descended? In Nine Dragons, many people were suppressed by this aura and almost knelt down. Some of the weaker ones even vomited blood. Who is it? A loud shout came from the depths of Nine Dragons, and a burly man rushed out. This burly man was Chu Luo, who had been ordered to guard Nine Dragons. When Chu Luo saw the green-robed man, his eyes narrowed, because he didn't know the other party. Now the Divine Wilderness continent's emperors, with the exception of those from the Western Desert, had all joined the Dragon Alliance. Chu Luo was familiar with every one of them, but he did not know this person. Clearly, he was not the Divine Wilderness continent's emperor, and had come from overseas. Hee, you're finally out. Let me ask you a question. You'd better answer honestly, otherwise you'll suffer. The green-robed man chuckled. What do you want to ask? Chu Luo said. Have you ever heard of Lu Ming? The green-robed man said. Chapter 1368. 1368 The Emperor of the Outer Continent descends. Alliance Master? What business do you have with the Alliance Master? Chu Luo was stunned and asked. Alliance Master? It seems that Lu Ming's status here is not low. Tell me, where is Lu Ming now? The green-robed man said. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Chu Luo said cautiously. Nonsense, I told you to speak and you just said it. You really have a lot of nonsense. The green-robed man shouted impatiently. A powerful aura rose from his body and pressed down on Chu Luo. Chu Luo's body trembled, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. His face changed dramatically, and he exclaimed, Second-level martial emperor realm. This green-robed man was actually a level 2 martial royal realm expert. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Otherwise, don't expect me to tell you. Chu Luo roared. Still not speaking, you're really looking for death. The green-robed man's eyes turned cold as he struck out with his palm. Chu Luo's figure retreated rapidly, and he put up layers of defense in front of him. Bang bang bang. However, Chu Luo's defense was shattered by the green-robed man's palm. Chu Luo spat out a large mouthful of blood, and his body flew out like a cannonball. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Chu Luo turned around and ran. Do you think that I won't know if you run away? Die. The green-robed man shouted coldly, and did not pursue. He appeared under 9 dragons, and grabbed the head of a spiritual god realm master. Green mist then shrouded the man. The spiritual god realm master let out a shrill scream, and the people nearby trembled in fear. Speak. Where is Lu Ming? The green-robed man asked coldly. Alliance head, it's in Dragon Emperor City, Dragon Emperor City. That person shouted. Dragon Emperor City? Give me the map. The green-robed man shouted coldly. The man did not dare to disobey. He took out a map from his storage ring and handed it to the green-robed man. The green-robed man flung the spiritual god realm master away and opened the map. He sneered. Hehe Lu Ming, I finally found you. It's no wonder that I rushed over from the green-rich continent. A cold light flashed in the green-robed man's eyes. He took a step forward and walked towards the Imperial Dragon City. If Lu Ming was here, he would definitely know that the Lufeng continent was a continent in the southern part of the Divine Ruins continent cluster. It was adjacent to the Divine Wilderness continent. As soon as the green-robed man left, the spiritual god realm master caught by the green-robed man gasped for breath and broke out in a cold sweat. Just when he thought he had escaped, a cloud of green mist suddenly emerged from his body and enveloped him. A shrill scream sounded again. After a while, when the mist dispersed, the spiritual god realm master was only left with a skeleton. Hiss hiss hiss. The people nearby all gasped. A similar scene appeared in southern Nether and northern plains. The emperors of both places were attacked. In the Imperial Dragon City, Lu Ming had also received the news. An expert who fought to a draw with the continent has appeared in the southern underworld. Lu Ming frowned. All sides were attacked. The ones who appeared were all emperors with profound cultivation. Even the weakest one was a level 2 martial royal realm expert. Only Nanming was able to confirm that he was the emperor, who had fought evenly with the continent. A draw with the continent? Then, based on the information, it's highly possible that they came from several different continents. Strange. Lu Ming frowned. They came from different continents, and suddenly came to the Divine Wilderness continent. Furthermore, all of them had the same goal, to find him Lu Ming. Lu Ming was filled with doubts. Why did these experts from different continents come to the Divine Wilderness continent to find him at the same time? What? At this moment, Lu Ming received another message. Someone is attacking Northern Plains Demon God Valley. The Demon God Valley was the place where Xiaowan was in charge. Xiaowan showed his power and severely injured his opponent. Then, He took that man to the Imperial Dragon City through the interterritory teleportation formation. Lu Ming was overjoyed. It was a good time to interrogate him. Lu Ming took a step forward and tore open the space. The next moment, he appeared at the border teleportation formation and saw Xiaowan. There was also a skinny old man. His aura was weak and his face was pale. He lay on the ground with a face full of shock. "I'm from the White Feather Continent. You'd better let me go. Otherwise you'll all die without a burial place." The skinny old man roared, threatening Xiaowan. The old man was at the second level of the martial royal realm, but he was no match for Xiaowan. Bang! Lu Ming arrived and landed a footprint on the old man's face, causing the old man's face to come into close contact with the ground. "Nonsense. Speak. Why did you come to the Divine Wilderness Continent to find me?" Lu Ming asked coldly. "You are Lu Ming." The skinny old man's eyes lit up, and he stared at Lu Ming with a greedy look. "Speak." Lu Ming exerted force on his feet. The old man struggled madly. However, his cultivation was sealed, and it was useless to struggle. "Lu Ming, you'd better hand over the primordial chaos token and let me go. Otherwise, not only will you die, the entire Divine Wilderness Continent will be buried with you." The skinny old man roared. "Mixed essence token? You're here for the mixed essence token? Tell me what happened." Lu Ming shouted. Lu Ming had not expected that these people would come for the primordial chaos token. He was even more curious. "Quickly let me go," the skinny old man shouted. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stomped on the skinny old man's legs twice. The skinny old man's legs exploded and turned into dust. The skinny old man gasped, and his eyes almost popped out. He then let out a heart-wrenching scream. To an emperor, having his legs burst was nothing. With the exuberant vitality of a spirit body, he could recover very quickly. However, that heart-piercing pain was real. Tell me the truth. Tell me the ins and outs of the matter. Otherwise, the next kick will be your dantian," Lu Ming said coldly. The skinny old man's heart tightened. If Lu Ming stepped on his dantian, his spiritual god would be in danger. In the end, the skinny old man helplessly told him everything he knew. It turned out that a few months ago, a piece of shocking news had spread from the Divine Ruins continent. It was said that the South God Palace had captured a heaven's favorite who had a primordial chaos token. With the token, one could freely enter and exit the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside. The news caused a huge commotion. Later on, there was more news that the paragon with the primordial chaos token came from the Divine Wilderness continent. And there was another person in the Divine Wilderness continent who also had a primordial chaos token. His name was Lu Ming. The entire news spread like a whirlwind across the Divine Ruins continent, even to other continents. The Divine Ruins were too mysterious. Inside it contained boundless treasures. There were a few Divine Ruins in the Divine Ruins continent, but it was very dangerous inside, especially the core. Even emperors would die if they went in. But now, by using the mixed element token, one could actually enter the Divine Ruins freely and obtain the treasures inside. This caused the continent group of the Divine Ruins to go into a frenzy. Since one piece was in the hands of the South God Palace, the others could only go and snatch the other piece, the one in Lu Ming's hands. Lu Ming finally understood why the sovereigns of the various continents would travel such a long distance to the Divine Wilderness continent. Their goal was the mixed energy token he had. Chapter 1369. 1369 Chapter 1369. Come to get the primordial chaos token. Lu Ming speculated that the genius controlled by the South God Palace was Long Chen. First, Long Chen was already in the Wang family's hands, and he happened to have the primordial chaos token. Second, a mixed essence token was not that easy to obtain. Lu Ming estimated that in the entire continent group of the Divine Ruins, only he and Long Chen had the primordial chaos token. Previously, He had learned from 2E of the Primal Chaos Hall that the Primordial Chaos token was based on one's potential. In the Battle of Providence, some people's cultivation might far exceed Lu Ming's cultivation in the Battle of Providence. However, they might not be able to obtain the mixed energy token. Only those who were determined to have great potential could possibly obtain a mixed energy token. Based on these 2 points, Lu Ming speculated that the prodigy was 100% Long Chun. The Wang family, through some means such as soul searching, had found out from Long Chun that Lu Ming also had a mixed essence token. However, there was one thing that Lu Ming could not figure out. For example, if the Wang family or the other experts of the South God Palace had secretly found out from Long Chun that Lu Ming also had a primordial chaos token, shouldn't they have secretly sent experts to capture Lu Ming? How did he spread the news and let all the continents in the continent group of the Divine Ruins know about it? This did not make sense. Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly came down from the sky. The Imperial Dragon City was enveloped by a powerful pressure. Boom! Boom! Soon after this stress rose up, more stress broke out and suffused the sky above Dragon Emperor City. At this moment, everyone in Dragon Emperor City felt being crushed by Mount Tai and facing a great catastrophe. Lu Ming, get out here! Lu Ming, come out! Several roars were as loud as thunderclaps. The sky above the Imperial Dragon City was rumbling, which shook many people's eardrums and almost made them vomit blood. Good! Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He took a step forward and landed on the skinny elder's dantian. Boom! The violent power pierced through the skinny elder's dantian and shattered his spiritual soul. The old man's eyes popped out and he roared, You didn't keep your word. Lu Ming sneered. I didn't say that I won't kill you. Also, you came to the Divine Wilderness continent to take my primordial chaos token. Do you think I won't kill you? You're really naive. With a burst of power, the skinny old man was torn into pieces. Then, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in the sky. Buzz! Whoosh! The sound of air being torn rang out and 5 figures appeared beside Lu Ming. Besides Xiao Wan, there were 4 other emperors. Other than Lu Ming, the Imperial Dragon City was usually guarded by 4 other sovereigns. As soon as Lu Ming appeared in the sky, he saw a few figures standing around the Imperial Dragon City. I am Lu Ming. Lu Ming's voice could be heard from afar. Buzz! Buzz! In a flash, the figures around the Imperial Dragon City appeared around Lu Ming and the others, surrounding them in the middle. Lu Ming, I'm the Divine Sky Emperor of the Zhuaning continent. Hand over your mixed essence token. A burly man with golden hair glared at Lu Ming with an overbearing aura. The mixed energy token is mine. I am the Snow Moon Emperor of the fluttering snow continent. A beautiful woman in white was staring at Lu Ming with cold eyes. Both of them were at the peak of the 2nd-level martial royal realm, and were extremely powerful. Those who dared to cross the vast distance to the Divine Wilderness continent to participate in this contest were all top experts from their respective continents. Even the weakest of them was at the 2nd level of the martial royal realm. Even the 1st-level martial royal realm experts did not dare to come. He knew that even if he obtained the token, he wouldn't be able to enjoy it. Fluttering snow continent, Zhuaning continent, get lost. A burly man in battle armor shouted coldly. His aura was extremely shocking. He was actually a level 3 martial royal realm expert. A draw with the continent. The Snow Moon Emperor and the Holy Sky Emperor both had grave expressions. This 3rd-level martial royal realm expert was from Pingdong continent. Even with the continents, they were all in the top 10 of the Divine Ruins continent group, and were very powerful. Other than these 3, there were another 3 people who were at the level 2 martial royal realm. One of them was the green-robed elder. He surrounded Lu Ming and the others, eyeing them like a tiger watching its prey. Lu Ming, hand over your primordial chaos token and I'll spare your life. The emperor, who had fought evenly with the continent, looked at Lu Ming coldly. Hee, you're here to take the mixed essence token, but it seems you don't know anything about it. The mixed essence token was obtained in the Battle of Providence, and has long been integrated with me. Even if you take it, you can't use it. Lu Ming smiled faintly. You can't use it? That's simple. As long as I cripple you and bring you along, I can similarly enter the divine ruins and obtain the treasures inside. The Emperor of the Continent laughed sinisterly. Oh really? You're so confident. But have you ever thought that you'll lose your lives here? Lu Ming remained calm, but behind his calmness, a cold killing intent was slowly gathering. Ha ha, throw your life here? In the divine wilderness continent? What experts can they have that can do anything to me? The experts who fought to a draw with the continent laughed loudly, looking down on everyone. Oh, since that's the case, then die. Lu Ming shouted loudly, and suddenly launched an attack. With the chaotic will lingering around him, he wielded the dragon vein sword, and slashed at the Emperor, who had fought evenly with the continent. The terrifying power caused the Emperor, who was fighting evenly with the continent, to change his expression. Block it! After fighting evenly with the Emperor of the continent, a halberd appeared in his hand. He let out a breath, and slashed down with all his might. As a Level 3 Martial Royal Realm expert, he could kill an ordinary Level 2 Martial Royal Realm expert with a full force attack. However, when Lu Ming's dragon vein sword hit his halberd, it shook violently and exploded with a bang. The Emperor's body trembled violently after fighting evenly with him. Blood spurted from his mouth as he retreated. How is that possible? The Emperor of the continent roared in disbelief. He was a third-grade martial emperor, while Lu Ming was merely a supreme. Although it was indeed unbelievable that he could reach the supreme being realm at such a young age, a supreme being was still just a supreme being after all. How could his combat strength be so powerful that he could injure him so severely with one move? Kill! Lu Ming stepped forward. His combat sword cut through the void and slashed at the Emperor, who was evenly matched with the continent. The Emperor of the continent wanted to dodge, but he suddenly found that dozens of formations had appeared around him. They were all formations to trap the enemy and had him trapped. The dragon vein sword slashed and cut the Emperor of the continent in half. This, on the side, the Holy Sky Emperor, the Fluttering Snow Emperor, and the others were dumbfounded. They were completely stunned, and their eyes were wide open. All of this happened too quickly. Lu Ming had just made his move, and within 2 moves, a third-level martial emperor expert, an expert that they were so afraid of, was killed. He thought he was dreaming. Kill! Lu Ming's sword swept across, and a second-level martial royal realm expert was killed. Run, run! The others were terrified and frantically fled in all directions. Kill! Xiao Wan made his move. With a roar, he unsheathed his demonic blade, and cut a Level 2 martial royal realm expert into 2. As for Lu Ming, he took a step forward, and appeared behind the fluttering snow divine warrior, slashing down with his combat sword. The drifting snow sovereign desperately tried to block, but it was of no use. The battle sword slashed down, breaking everything. The drifting snow emperor was dead. Chapter 1370. 1370 Chapter 1370. Almost everyone is here. The 5 sovereigns, including a Level 3 martial royal realm expert, were all killed in an instant, leaving only the Holy Sky Sovereign. The Holy Sky Emperor felt a chill from head to toe. Originally, in his opinion, even if there were strong people in the divine wilderness, the second level of the martial royal realm was the highest. With his cultivation at the peak of the second level of the martial royal realm, it was enough to dominate the divine wilderness. But now, he realized that the divine wilderness continent was a dragon's pool and a tiger's denver. It was a hell. Spare me. The Holy Sky Emperor begged for mercy. I've said it before. Since you've come to take my primordial chaos token, you should be prepared to be killed. Do you really think that the divine wilderness continent is your back garden? Do you think that I, Lu Ming, can be toyed with by you as you please? Lu Ming's cold voice was heard. He appeared behind the Holy Sky Emperor and slashed his dragon vein sword mercilessly. The Holy Sky Emperor remorsefully tried to resist, but the result was difficult to change. The Holy Sky Emperor was defeated and killed in the air. The 5 sovereigns who had come to attack had all died. Lu Ming, send out the order to gather all the sovereigns to guard the Imperial Dragon City. I'm afraid that there will be more powerful people coming. Xiao Wan suggested. No. Lu Ming waved his hand and said, if we defend passively, there will be no end to it. Now we need to take the initiative and beat them until they are afraid. Spread the news to every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent. Do not put up any resistance against the experts from the other continents. Tell them directly that I, Lu Ming, am at Emperor Fall Mountain. You're going to be in Emperor Fall Mountain? Xiao Wan asked, raising an eyebrow. That's right, Emperor Fall Mountain, kill the emperors. Lu Ming said. Do you need our help? Xiao Wan said. He could not help but secretly admire Lu Ming's decisiveness. No need. Thank you, Senior. You're in charge of Dragon Emperor City. Lu Ming said. Then, he took a step forward and headed for the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Emperor Falling Mountain was only 600,000 miles away from Dragon Emperor City. It was a huge peak that reached into the sky. It was said that in the distant past, an emperor had fallen here, so it was called Emperor Fall Mountain. After a while, Lu Ming appeared at the peak of the Fallen Emperor Mountain. He sat cross-legged and waited quietly. The Dragon Imperial City had also spread the news to every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent, saying that Lu Ming was at the Emperor Fall Mountain. As time passed, more and more powerful cultivators from other continents arrived in the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming is at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Let's go to Emperor Fall Mountain. I want to be one step ahead and get the Primordial Chaos token. One figure after another headed towards Emperor Fall Mountain. At the edge of northern plains, the sky rumbled. A huge ship crossing the sea appeared on the coastline. Buzz! 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 3 figures appeared in the ship, each of them exuding vast and powerful auras. 2 of the 3 figures were at the peak of the 2nd-level martial royal realm. The one in the middle was even more terrifying, having reached the peak of the 3rd-level martial royal realm. This person had long green hair and looked to be in his 40s. In the distance, a beam of light flashed and a middle-aged man appeared in front of the 3 of them. He bowed to the green-haired middle-aged man in the middle and said, Second Master, I found out that Lu Ming is in seclusion at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Oh, I got it. The blue-haired middle-aged man nodded and sneered. This Lu Ming is really audacious. He even dares to kill the young master of the sea-suppressing marshal's mansion. This time, my big brother sent me here to kill Lu Ming first to avenge my 2 nephews, and to take the mixed energy token. This subordinate will definitely do his best. The others on the side quickly said, All right, let's go. The green-haired middle-aged man was the first to step forward. In the Fallen Emperor Mountain, Lu Ming sat cross-legged, casually scanning his surroundings. 7 or 8 experts had already appeared around the Fallen Emperor Mountain. They were all powerhouses from different continents, and each of them was a level 2 martial royal realm powerhouse. This power was extremely shocking. However, these people did not make a move. It was not because they were worried about Lu Ming, but because they were worried about each other, and were in a stalemate. The mixed essence token is mine. I was the first to arrive. What a joke. You came first, so it's yours? That's bullshit. Could it be that you all want to fight me to a draw against the continent? One voice after another rang out, as the auras of the powerful sovereigns burst forth. They stood in the air and faced each other, not giving in. 2 more experts had arrived after the draw with the continent. One of them was at the 3rd-level martial royal realm, while the other was at the peak of the 2nd-level martial royal realm. As expected of one of the top 10 continents in the continent group of the Divine Ruins, it was very powerful. All the experts were in a confrontation. They were all wary of each other, and no one made a move. A faint smile appeared at the corners of Lu Ming's mouth. He did not try to break the balance. Now is not the time to make a move. It would not be too late to make a move when there were more people. As time passed, more and more emperors came. Behind them, there were 16 more. Even the White Feather Continent, which was ranked fourth in the continent group of the Divine Ruins, had sent a few. Buzz! 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 Suddenly, 4 figures flew over from the distance. The one in the lead was the green-haired middle-aged man. I'm working in the sea-suppressing marshal's mansion of the South God Palace of the Divine Ruins continent. All unrelated people please leave. A person beside the green-haired middle-aged man shouted. The other people's expressions changed. What? Even the people from the South God Palace are here. Doesn't the South God Palace have a primordial chaos token? Why are they still envelevered? The others spoke up one after another, their expressions grave. The Divine Ruins continent was too powerful, far stronger than the other continents. However, it was impossible for them to give up just like that. See suppressing Marshal's mansion. Don't try to oppress us with your power. We have so many people here, so we're not afraid of you. That's right. If it was the sea suppressing commander-in-chief, we might be a bit afraid. But you want us to retreat? Impossible. The others chimed in. The people who had appeared here were all peak experts from the various continents. Although the green-haired middle-aged man had a strong cultivation, he was only at the peak of the Lever 3 Martial Royal Realm. He could not scare these experts. Humph, you really don't know what's good for you. Do you want to go against the sea-suppressing Marshal's mansion and the South God Palace? The azure-haired middle-aged man's eyes flashed with a cold light as he coldly rebuked. But the others sneered, and none of them retreated. Most of the experts from the southern continent of the Divine Ruins had gathered here. With so many experts gathered, why would they be afraid of the sea-suppressing Marshal's mansion? At most he could hide after getting the mixed essence token. What could the experts of the South God Palace do? The green-haired middle-aged man's face darkened. Everyone present was an expert. There were no less than 5 third-level Martial Royal Realm experts. Although none of them were at the peak of the third-level Martial Royal Realm, he was still afraid of the joint attack of so many experts. We're finally almost there. At this moment, on the fallen Emperor Mountain, Lu Ming spoke indifferently. Many of the sovereigns looked at Lu Ming in unison. Lu Ming, how dare you kill the people of the sea-suppressing Marshal's mansion? Hand over the mixed element token now, and come with me to the sea-suppressing Marshal's mansion to accept your punishment. The green-haired middle-aged man shouted. Hi Tion, hi you those 2 pieces of trash. It's fine if you kill them. If you want revenge, then do it. Lu Ming said calmly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.